you ever felt.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
I listened to my buddy Ryan Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, man, it's kind of a lot, you know. It's just like maybe reduce it, and then be constantly sort of changing it and letting it evolve. Because you know, I didn't think about it. It's like he told me, he's like, because he always just listened to podcasts, and myself too. Before I started this, I'd never watched a podcast. Like YouTube, I'm gonna go watch a podcast,
right?
But what I started realizing, and he brought this up, he's like, you know, people when they watch it, they get engaged at like another level. Like it's like a sitcom. Yeah. Like it's that corner room where they're like the mom and dad are constantly, you know, and it's like the back and forth banter. So people get accustomed to seeing like what your room looks like, you know, and like I've seen some people that do it, they'll like subtly change things every once in a while. Or they'll like, you know, there'll be like records on display and they like change that record, you know, and it's like it adds a whole nother like tertiary level to the show. Yeah. You know, it's like, and if people are tuning in to physically watch it, you know, that's a whole different type of, I think, listening, viewing audience.
It is. I prefer video, but like can't obviously have video all the time. Like while I'm out listening to like in the tractor and whatnot. So it's great to just have something to listen to at least. But I do like video is, I don't know, I get sucked into video so much easier. So
I mean, it's addicting. You'll burn up 25 minutes real quick. You're like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
You know? And the other thing too that's weird is like YouTube now. Used to, I remember like when you'd be playing YouTube, if you swiped up on the app, it would like pause and shut off. Now it just like goes into like a little thumbnail screen and it's still playing.
Yeah.
So what we found, like even from starting this, I think they made that like platform change from when we started this show to now. Like you can see analytics, and I don't know how it like calculates that, but like the video is playing, but it's a different type of watch. Like it'll show you like every screen, like is it on a desktop, is it on a mobile, is it Apple, is it Android? But then it also shows it when it goes into like a different category.
So it counts as a lesser view?
No, it doesn't count as a lesser view. It's just like a listening. It's like a listening viewership at that point.
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
most of the time they're figuring, okay, well, you're driving and you just happen to be playing it on YouTube. So it's good to sort of know that those analytics, I think, you know.
I never thought about that, but like, I don't know, maybe my settings, but like, so I could have it going on YouTube and then just like, you know, because there's some that are not, some like I just want to watch, you know, but I can't get just the audio. So like I have to go to YouTube. So that would be pretty sweet if I didn't know that I could keep it rolling. I don't know if my phone would time out, if it would change it, but like, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how it drops. Like I just noticed like mine, like if I'm anymore, and maybe it's I don't subscribe to YouTube as far as like a paid subscription. It's not like YouTube Red or something like that. But it's like you just swipe up and it's like Spotify's playing in the background. You know, so I don't know. It's
pretty sweet.
Yeah, it definitely it changes the game. And the weird thing too about YouTube from an analytical thing is like they have such a good way of like steering new things to people. Like that's what I appreciate them over like Spotify or Apple. Like granted, like Apple's crushing with the audio only game. I get that, but like YouTube, their algorithm is awesome. Like it really will funnel. You know, and that's what's really cool. Like you'll see, like on analytics, like let's say we talk about, you know, farming today or agritourism or whatever. Mm-hmm. If I hashtag keyword that or whatever I do in the description, it'll funnel that, and then you can see like how many times they put that in front of a person and how many like there's like it's like a CTR, it's a click through ratio. But it's really cool. I mean, it like kind of lets you know like what worked and what didn't work.
Exactly.
On Apple, it's like, oh, there's analytics and here's the plays and like all this stuff, but it's kind of just like a trial and error. Right. So it's like, thank God for YouTube. But then I know a lot of people are like, wait, you're on YouTube? I'm like, well, yeah, we're actually more popular on YouTube than we are any other platform. And they're like, oh, I only ever listen to it. I'm like, interesting.
Yeah. I do. I have like a Pixel. So like the Google podcast was the easiest for me to just start like adapt.
They just canceled that, right?
Yeah. Well, like I still have it on my phone, but they're pushing us over to YouTube, like YouTube Music. And you go over there and you can find, they say like everything that they have. because it's the same company, I guess. But mix it over, and then you're just supposed to have the same without having to pay. You're supposed to be able to just like watch everything or watch it and listen, I guess, and everything. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, I still have access, and I don't know. I thought it was the end of January, but here we are, February, and it's still cranking.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. They'll probably trickle it off at some point in time.
Yeah.
So, well, Jesse, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you. You know, I
didn't know you were rolling already.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into it, or
Sorry,
you're good. I've been trying to do that, actually, clap it in before everybody gets in here, and then all of a sudden it's just like, you don't get the red light panic, but. Mainly, my brain is just going a million miles an hour because I'm freezing because that cold plunge. But
right on.
So I'm just trying to do something to stay physically warm.
Awesome.
But no, obviously I follow you on Facebook or Instagram, or probably both.
Okay.
And I see a lot of the stuff that you put up. Some of it I agree with, some of it I disagree with.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking to again Ryan Johnson the other day, and he's like, you should have on. You should get Jesse on. He's like, honestly, I think it'd be a really intriguing conversation for people to kind of just listen to, and just like because a lot of people, like, you saw the questionnaire, right? We send out the calendar, and it's like, hey, give us some information. I've had people put in a laundry list of things in there. I'd say 90% are like, I don't want to talk politics, I don't want to talk religion. It's like, okay, cool, all bets off. We'll talk about whatever.
I get that.
And I'm not saying that you necessarily want to come in here and only talk about that, but I feel like there's an element to you, at least from outsiders' perspective looking in,
interesting,
that you're not afraid to talk about that. Or you're not afraid to at least say, hey, here's an opinion. Let's have an open conversation or a dialogue about the opposing views.
For sure.
And I'm like, that's what I'm all about, is like, why can't we have a conversation? It's like the ability to have a conversation anymore, especially in a public platform, is like gone. People are like, if you're not in my camp, when you're in that camp, fuck you.
Don't agree with me.
Whoa. Yeah, hang on. So I was like,
for sure.
And when Ryan said that, I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds super, interesting. And I kind of knew you guys from talking with Hannah Miegler about the agritourism and your guys' involvement with that, and trying to kind of foster and develop that agritourism sector in our local region. And I was just like, man, I just think it'd be a great conversation. So
cool.
Again, I appreciate you coming on. And, I had no idea.
Thanks for having me.
The questionnaire, which is crazy, is like, I see you post stuff, but like, sometimes like when you're like, you follow people and you see stuff and it kind of goes in one eye and out the other, I guess.
Yeah.
And I've seen you like put up pictures with the buffalo. And I'm like, never 2 and 2, had no idea of your involvement like with that. And I also didn't realize that it was with the tribe.
Right.
And so I'm really interested to hear you kind of talk about that and sort of what led to that.
Okay.
Let's just jump straight in.
Okay.
Take me up to speed. Like how did you get involved with the tribe with their Bison program?
Bison program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a backstory. I don't want to go too far, take too much time, but so my wife and I moved back to Bayfield in 2010, take over the sheep ranch, our family sheep ranch. So we had, I should say. A few years later, we dissolved the livestock aspect of that and just kept like the ranch. And so I transitioned from sheep to bison. It wasn't like a quick transition, but my wife worked at the tribe and she worked near the HR department, and they kept trying to like get this position filled for a bison herd manager. And I'd seen it online a couple of times and just like, I don't know anything about bison, and it's definitely not my lane to try to, merge into. And I guess it turns out like the position was open for like 6 months and no one applied. And so they were just kind of trying to get someone with livestock experience. They knew they wouldn't get anybody with bison. So I had sheep and cattle. And so kind of as an appeasement to her, she's like, just humor me and apply for the position. So applied, and like during the interview process, they were like, any bison experience? Like, no. But are there avenues for me to be able to learn about this animal? Because it's pretty powerful, I know. And so anyway, there's an organization out there called ITBC, Intertribal Buffalo Council. They were awesome to be a part of. And I guess we still are a part of them, but the tribe, I should say, is a part of it. But a lot of hands-on trainings, seminars, that kind of stuff, and really brought me up to speed. And I now am super grateful that all that happened, because before I was kind of fighting it, like I don't want to do this kind of thing. But I'm so glad that I did, because just learning and understanding this animal has been really cool for me. And it's kind of like this weird thing that's been going out like through my life. Bison and buffalo have shown up, and so like when I was little, CU had won like the national champion, so you'd see like CU buffs all over the place. So I got like a bunch of shirts, of course, because stores around us had it. And then later I went to CU, and so I was buff there. And then out of college, and this might be, I don't know. Anyway, there's a club, I guess you could call it, like a kind of underground club called the Buffalo Club. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, what is that?
So this found me in like 2009. We were on a ski trip, and a buddy of mine was like, "Hey, you want to be in the Buffalo Club?" And I was just like, "What's this said Buffalo Club?" Anyway, it's you drink beverages with your left hand only, and if anyone else in the club finds you doing so, then you have to pound whatever we're drinking at the moment. And
They find you drinking with your opposite hand.
Just left hand. So there's different variations out there, but ours I was brought into just left hand only, just to keep it consistent. Because like a lot of people would be like, "Well, my dominant hand is my right," and so like, okay, left. So then that found me, and that's just a whole nother like side thing. It's pretty funny. There's a lot of Bayfield crew involved in there now. So that found me, and then there was like this bronze bison statue that my grandma had, and she ended up giving me that, and then I came to work with the bison at the tribe. So kind of just feel like maybe the bison is my animal kind of a thing. So anyway, yeah, it's been a really cool learning process. A lot of benefits to bison. Maybe not, I shouldn't say versus cattle, but a lot of benefits to having bison as far as their impact and their strength, and like, so they've got like 8 times the hair follicles that cattle do, so they can withstand cold, freezing temperatures a lot better. And just a bunch of stuff, like their calves are born tiny, naturally, like 40 pounds, which is pretty small. Like 40 to 80 is probably like maybe your average, and maybe even bigger for some of like the average like cattle ranchers around here. But bison are always like really small, and it's designed like that so they don't have issues with birth. I've never had to help with a birthing process in my 8 years there, so gratefully. But just little things like that I've picked up on. I was like, wow, this is a huge benefit to cattle. I'm not saying they're better than cattle, but yeah, it's been a really cool thing.
So
for me.
what is the what is that organization again? The
Intertribal Buffalo Council.
Yeah. So are they? Obviously they're trying to bring them back. Maybe obviously not to the masses that they once were.
Tribal lands.
But on tribal lands. So do they roam, or are they in? They're obviously fenced in at a certain boundary level, but is it much larger? Is it like a 40-acre parcel? Is it 150 or 2,000 acres? Like where
the Southern Ute tribes? Yeah. Bison. Yeah. So they are 350 acres.
Okay.
It's out there by Foxfire Farms.
Okay.
It's like kitty corner to Foxfire Farms if you're ever out there. And there are 122 head out there. They pretty much have free reign to do what they want. Most of the time they stay in the fences and everything's good to go.
Gotcha.
But, Intertribal Buffalo Council, their main push is to bring bison back to native lands, and they do a lot of stuff around the country, legislation and pushing for bills to funding tribes. And last summer, I guess it was, they kind of in co-op, I guess, with ITBC, Rocky Mountain PBS came down and did a little segment on the Southern Ute Tribes Bison program, which was kind of cool. They were doing a 2-part series about bison in Colorado and bringing them. Well, they did everything. I mean, with the CU campus, and interviewed like the Ralphie Buffalo crew and a lot of other tribes around. So it was cool to be a part of. But yeah, Intertribal Buffalo Council helped like kind of facilitate all that.
Do they allow them to harvest them or hunt?
Yeah. So the bison that I help raise are pretty much all for meat production.
Okay.
No hunting, but like take them into the processor, USDA processing, and get them processed. And then tribal members come and get 5 pounds per household per month free of bison meat. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but it goes quick. And
How many pounds? I'm sorry.
5 pounds per household.
Per month. Oh, per month.
Yeah, free. It's really not much, but it adds up. Like when I went up to get the meat this last time, I have to go all the way to Montrose for the closest USDA bison facility to process. So Montrose, and I was up there, and I just happened to look in their freezer, and there's no difference between the bison that I haul in there and the bison that they're selling. But I did the math, and it's between $74 and $87 of bison meat, like dollar-wise, that is distributed free. So it's pretty sweet.
So you guys don't have a processing facility here specifically that can process bison legally?
USDA.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you can put one down yourself and take it to Kohl's or somewhere around locally. Yeah. But like there's no USDA plants right now. There's one coming in.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was experimenting. I went all the way to Alamosa, Fruta, like all over places in Kinnikin.
Looking at these other facilities.
And having them process the meat and seeing how we liked it done. And Kinnikin, shout out to Kinnikin, I guess. They're up in Montrose, and they just did the best job out of everybody. Okay. So it's worked out great.
And so this meat that you're taking from farm to table has to be processed for tribal members through a USDA processing facility?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Since we're giving it out for free, it could be as what they call just like a custom cut.
Okay.
Not for sale. So, but for legal purposes and safety reasons, they want it to be USDA. So it's the same stuff you get at the restaurant. They just want them to have that. And then basically, so USDA it can be the same plant, same day, same everything. But the difference is you have a USDA individual that comes to the plant and actually monitors all processes of the harvest. So from the bullet. So yeah, that might be a little graphic, but yeah, there's with a bison, they put them down with a rifle. It's the best way to do it as far as like humanely to get it done quick. From the bullet to like the wrapping. Well, the wrapping's a little bit later, but all the cutting up, they go through and skin, pull out the organs. Some of the organs are bad. They're like, no, can't have that. So USDA guy's there to make sure all that works.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. So do you guys do it when it's, do you offer, maybe this is a little bit premature, but do you offer for some of the tribal members to come out and be a part of this? Because I would imagine that, growing the herd is one thing, but also trying to bring it back into, I don't know that commonality would be the right term, but back into their lifestyle, back into these tribal, these tribes, way of life. I mean, coming out and processing. And I know they don't allow for hunting, right? But so what does that look like?
We do. So for like educational purposes, we'll have like we call it a cultural harvest. So it's not every year, but it's frequent. So we'll get out there, and it's a really cool event. They do like a sunrise blessing. Last one we did, there was, I think they said over 100 people that were out there. And it's just this little tiny like corral parking lot, but build a fire in the morning, and they do a drum ceremony, blessing, and then they actually will put down the bison in our catch pens, and then we'll bring it up on a cradle. And that's the learning part is kids or whoever's there, like they can grab a scalpel and start cutting open the hide, and they start, taking everything. Eventually, we don't do the actual processing of the meat that day. We'll get it up and get it able to go to a processing facility. We go to Kohl's over there in Pagosa. But, I mean, it's like we take a good chunk of a half day to do it. Obviously, you don't want the meat to be out there too long, so we try to do it quickly. But as much as you can do to educate, and then some people will be like, well, we would, there's some hunters that'll come and be like, we like to do it this way, and they'll show like, this is how we want it done. And the reason that they kind of started doing that is they wanted to show how to field dress an animal, but you can't get 100 people out to go get an elk or a deer. So they started to say, well, the bison's a pretty good avenue. Let's do that. And
yeah, definitely.
Kind of a similar process, even though the carcass is much bigger and different, but
a bison is?
Yeah.
What's a bison weigh?
Our females average about 900, so they're not huge.
Yeah.
And then our bulls are maybe about 15. Same as like your cattle, maybe, but ours are smaller. they got some genetics that have come from all over, and so they're not like the big woodland ones that you'll see, and they're not like ours are younger too. So like the pictures you see of the huge bulls with they're probably an older bull, like maybe close to 20 years old.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Ours are. We just put our oldest cow down this year, and she was 11. So,
Okay.
I mean, it's a young herd, and so we don't get that big. But yeah, it's actually way better for handling. I mean,
What's the average lifespan of a bison?
20-25.
Okay.
Like it naturally.
What about a cow? If you don't take it to harvest?
Like a beef cow?
Yeah.
Yeah, about the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a little shorter. Production years, you don't really want to push, like if you're breeding and kind of doing that for meat. Past 10, it might start stressing the cows a little bit,
Gotcha.
the females. So a lot of guys will start. And then, there's some other stuff that goes along with that. But yeah, most people will harvest, like cull their older ones off around 10 at production. So they call it like riding age from like 3 to 8. You'll have like the best production years of that female's, cycles. So they try to, and then everything's a percentage after that as far as like your birthing and everything. So the older they get, the less productive they can be, kind of a thing. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you guys feed them? Because I've talked to a couple of people that are like kind of worried about that. And if you get bison at the store, I mean, anymore, if it's just ground bison, it's kind of hard to discern the difference between that and beef.
Yeah,
I mean, depending
I think
on
so
what
too.
it's mixed in, it's just kind of like, so clearly they're either hopping them up at the end, with corn or what, grass,
Corn, yeah.
But what do you guys have them on as far as?
Yeah, 100% grass fed.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I mean,
Okay.
they could be processed or they could be labeled as USDA 100% organic grass fed. We don't have any of that because it's expensive to get and
Sure.
it's not necessary. But yeah, that's all. And I can say that because in the winter, all I feed is hay that we produce there at the pasture or
Gotcha.
over at another part of the tribe where they have a center pivot and we bring that over. So
Gotcha. So
yeah,
100% grass fed, you don't do anything right before production or no?
nothing at all.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
It's great.
Does it taste noticeably different than the bison you get? Like, I shouldn't say Walmart. Sure, it's going to taste different than Walmart's bullshit.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
But I mean,
It's hard for me to say. So that meat distribution program, it can only go to tribal members.
Sure.
So unless we have an event that we're a part of, like I don't really get to quality control the taste of the meat. So I'm assuming it's probably better.
you never taken a steak, just a little ribeye, just stuff it in your pocket.
Shoot, the ribeye is the best one. But we'll have like a cooking thing, or like they'll make some stew, and we'll have some of that. But I would like to hope that the meat would be a lot better. We harvest a lot of the younger 2-year-old bulls, so the meat should be a little more tender, not as rough as like in older cows. But
Sure.
Occasionally we harvest an older cow just because you have to for that process. But yeah, I'd like to hope that we get some jerky done every once in a while, and I've actually had a few tribal members give me the jerky, and it was amazing. Yeah,
Nice.
it was awesome. So
That's pretty great. Do they do any of the old, you constantly hear, obviously a delicacy back in the day was the tongue. Are they harvesting the tongue?
Yeah.
Is that kind of
Yeah.
part of bringing it back into the culture?
for sure. We'll get requests to do certain things outside of that even. We mostly harvest. When we harvest, we'll get the tongue, most of the innards, as long as everything's good to go as far as the USDA stamp goes.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll have to condemn some innards, like we have a problem with liver flukes. The whole area does. So it's not just concentrated our herd, but liver flukes can get in the liver and start causing damage. And
What is a liver fluke?
it's like a little worm.
Oh, okay.
It'll get in there and basically consume and eat, like cause internal damage, like burrowing through a liver, and then that
Really?
can sometimes allow for bacteria to come in there and cause issues. So eventually, rare, but eventually it can actually lead to liver failure in the animal dying.
Where does
So
that come from? What's that derived from?
the soil. So and before that, it was usually from dung or droppings from another animal, mostly cattle.
Okay.
and it has survived through that cycle, and then it's in the grass, and so these animals come and eat and nibble, and they get like the little, what do you call the baby worms, like the technical term, I don't know,
Sure.
but so they ingest that, and then so they kind of are not born, but they grow inside internally, and then they become like, the parasite, I guess you can call it. But yeah. So
what do you do to prevent that? You have to move them to a.
there's not much you can do.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you'd almost have to.
Once it's in the soil, it's pretty much there. So there are ways to mitigate it. It's time consuming, like years, and then you have to identify where it's coming from, and that's really a hard process to do. I've contacted a lot of like CSU, a bunch of like vets, and just like, how do we, aside from giving the worm medicine that we give them once a year, the Roundup, there's the only option is to really identify where it's coming from, fence it off, and not let them hit it, and let that stuff die, get exposure to the sun. And it's usually like the wet, marshy areas, so they can stay in there longer. But yeah, so we do worm and vaccinate once a year, bringing them in for a Roundup.
But you can't. The worms don't kill this liver worm. What is it called?
It's called the liver fluke.
Liver fluke?
Yeah, so there's only a certain type of worming medicine that will kill it, and it's becoming more and more difficult to get. There's a lot, so it used to be like ivermectin plus, and so there's a regular worming stuff that'll kill most of the worms, like in the intestines or stomachs, but then the liver fluke is a different type of medicine, and it has to be either an injectable or administered by mouth. Oh, I guess they have a pour on too, but we do an injectable, like give them a shot. That way we know it's in. So sorry, I don't want to like go down too far on that, but it's
it's getting harder to come by because of regulations, or
so California actually banned the ivermectin plus altogether, and then that kind of like created a trickle down, and so now we're having to like get like generic versions, and then just this last year they actually made it to where you had to go get a vet prescription to actually buy the meds to get rid of it. You can't get it like in a granule or a block and like put it out in the field, so it's getting tricky to treat because of restrictions coming down from government. On the flip side, a lot of the argument to that is that it is killing like the really healthy like dung beetles and stuff like that's out there naturally, and then it's good for the soil. And so there's kind of like this conflict of like, well, this stuff is so strong that it's killing that, and it's creating little ripple effects through those ecosystems and that kind of stuff. So it's all touch and go. It's kind of tricky to navigate, but at the same time, you don't want we've had animals pass from the liver fluke, and so it's kind of tough. It's like, well, if we don't get it, we can't doctor, and then what? So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So do you guys have a vet that's specific? I mean, because we got check off cattle, equestrian, any other kind of animal on a farm. Do you have to have a specific? I mean, you get to know how to treat bison, right?
Yeah, and there's no one around here locally.
Yeah.
There are some New Mexico and California, or Northern California, Colorado. Geez, some might say it's the same thing now. Sorry. But so we just we're good friends with a couple of the cattle vets, and it's the same. There's no bison specific wormer. It's using the same stuff as cattle, so we can just get it from them.
Okay, yeah. That's interesting. I mean, that's unfortunate. I mean, I do see what you're saying. It's just like, even though you're kind of helping one hand, you're hurting the other, in a different kind of a theory or method.
For sure. And it all comes down like with ag, if you got to have healthy soil. If you don't have healthy soil, you're not going to have anything to grow. It's like, I went to this training once, and the guy was like, what do you raise? And I said, I manage a bison herd. He's like, no. What you need to say is you manage the soil that grows the grass that feeds the bison herd. It all comes down to the soil. And I was just like, that's a great way to put it, because the soil's not healthy, you can't sustain anything. So
yeah, no, absolutely. That's pretty wild. Huh. That's crazy. So reluctancy to go deal with the bison. You've been there now for 8 years.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. It's cool. It's sorry, real quick. One of the reasons that I dig it a lot is there's something new every day. learning the animals, but then just like the power about being so close to them is just incredible. And I think I have a little bit of like a adrenaline like craving every time I bring these guys into the corral. It's
How far removed from domestication, like a cow or like a beef, are they? Are they just? Do they still feel wild?
Yeah.
Even though they're caged, it's 350 acres, but
yeah. So very much so.
yeah.
Ours are definitely domesticated bison.
Sure.
But at the same time, if I like walk out there in the field, they're not going to be near me. They're just like, they don't take off, but they'll move away because
Sure.
they know me. But like strangers go out there in vehicles and they'll just be like, see ya, kind of a thing. So when you bring them in to the corral, it's a different story. And a lot of times they'll come in a little worked up. They've got a different adrenaline system than cattle. So they release like 4 to 5 times more adrenaline, and they can sustain it for like 10 times the
length.
yeah. So if you bring them in all hopped up, then they're going to stay hopped up, and they get using their horns on, because at that point they're in a corral and they just feel pressure and they don't know where it's coming from. So another bison that's next to them must be coming from that dude. So they'll start like using their horns and goring them, and it can get pretty messy. And just being around that and like moving them, I've switched kind of. I try not to use any ATVs or motorized vehicles to really bring them in. So everything's done on foot for me now, and they just respond to it a lot better. So when I bring them in calmer, we seem to be able to work them a little easier. So like I'm literally out there like running with them and like coming up and closing a gate, and like sometimes they'll be coming back. And but I think that little bit of like adrenaline is kind of a fix for me, you know?
For sure. Yeah, I can imagine.
So far I've been lucky.
Yeah.
So
I mean, 1,100-pound animal, Jesus, that's still, I mean, even though you say that herd is small, you know, comparatively speaking, you know, that's a pretty good sized bull to.
It is, yeah. And
it's a fucking buffalo.
And
you know? It's not a cow, you know?
Everybody has horns. I don't know if people know that, but males, females, everybody's got horns.
They all do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know
they've
that.
all got weapons. They all know how to use them. It seems like the cows are actually more, well, sometimes meaner than the bulls. So
Really? For protection purposes? For the offspring?
Defense, yeah. And then, the babies. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's pretty wild, man. I think that's really interesting that Indian organization or tribal organization is trying to bring that back. I mean, there's just so. I mean, if you look at the history of bison, I mean, it's so sad. I mean, you know, honestly, and I think the biggest thing, like you didn't realize, it's like, I think for years and years, it's like you read in the textbooks or you hear the stories of like, oh, they just kind of died off. Like, no, we killed them off to affect, you know, we took over the food, right? It's like we were trying to steer, you know, a certain people to a certain area. And it's like, how else can we accomplish this, right? We can't beat you in battle. We're losing our asses. Yeah. So what do? We affect your food line, right? We affect your food source. Yeah. And that did it. They didn't have anything else, you know, and maybe not so much here in our area, but in the Great Plains, absolutely. Yeah. You know, it was just like, yes, it was a delicacy and it was like we were killing for fur and stuff. But the biggest primary reason was to attack the food source. Yeah. You take away somebody's food source, they have nothing else to do but to follow what you say. They have to follow your demands. Yeah. And so to hear that and see that it's sad, it's very, very depressing when you think about it. And granted, that was such a mass genocide of the history of our country anyways. Yeah. But to be like, man, I just, you know, until recent years, I never really thought about it like that. It's like, okay, that makes absolute sense. We were killing off the food source. So now to see, you know, these tribal entities trying to bring this back to life, even if it's a small, you know, 200 head or whatever, you know, and hopefully it kind of grows. It's really cool. It's pretty monumental to see and hear about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to put a number on it, they think between 70 and 100 million head of bison were out there crossing the country. And some estimates is down to like a couple hundred. Some say like 1,000 bison were left at one point. And so like really drastically, like just, you know, eradication almost. So it's glad to have them around still.
It's pretty wild, man. Yeah. It's pretty wild. See, like sometimes, like I think Steve Ranella even has it on one of his books, but that bison head that he found, you know, like in the wild, dude, it's just, what a creature.
Yeah.
So cool. You know what I mean? It's just
the heads are massive.
Yeah.
It's really real quick, like just speaking of like the head and the power, like we'll have some angry dude in the gate, and I'll be trying to close the gate, and I'll like the gates are pretty heavy. They're all metal, and but it takes me almost all my strength to like close this gate, and like I close it, and there's this little latch that has to click, and then once it clicks, then they're in. But until it clicks, like he can just walk right out, and so I have to like close these gates, and sometimes they'll feel that pressure of the gate coming in, and they'll just like nonchalantly like flip their head and like use their horns to like move the gate out of the way, and that gate will just come slamming back, and like it's been dangerous sometimes, like hands and feet like getting almost crushed. But it's amazing. Like the guy barely even touched it, and he sends it flying, and it's just like, whoa! Like that head is like as big as my torso.
Yeah,
and they can just
just the power and magnitude of that beast, man.
Yeah,
it's just it's crazy.
Yeah.
Like the strength of a, I saw something this morning, and it's like like bears, mountain lions scare the shit out of me. I don't know, they just always have, but. Like a bear, it's like we've done such a great thing in Hollywood to be like, oh, the cuddly bear, he's gonna get the honey. Yeah. But it's like I saw this thing this morning. It's like, don't be fooled by the size. I mean, yes, they're massive, and you oftentimes equate like big human being like big, fat, gigantic, not necessarily fast. Yep. It's like a good sized grizzly bear can run 60 miles an hour or 60 kilometers. Yeah. Right. So they can run as fast as a horse. Sure. Like your average horse, if you're out riding, they'll keep up with that. It's crazy. I mean, like if you think like it makes you feel tiny a lot of times when you think like, God, that is like the sheer strength of that animal, of a lot of these animals in the wild, of a buffalo. And it's just like, wow, we're pretty insignificant at times. It's just like, it's, I don't know if you've seen attacks, but like, buffalo attacks or bear attacks? Well, like bears, like when they're attacking something. Oh, dude, it's not pretty, and it's like aggressive. They're just like, I've actually seen videos of like two bears going at it, and it's like I can't believe like that I'm watching this, and like someone actually like was able to finish filming this whole thing because it's oh man, it's brutal, like violently like shaking and biting and ripping and oof. It's not a cuddly animal. They can climb trees. They can outrun you. Like you can't get away from the bear. So I saw this video the other day. It was like this the sow. She had a couple of cubs that were like up above, and like this other bear's coming in from below, and she gets she's upwind of him or downwind. Sorry, and man, she like got a whiff, and then it wasn't like there was no eyesight. It was like, I know you're coming. And it was stop. To protect the cubs. I mean, fucking dead break through the woods, and like the bear, you can see it. The guy's like filming, and it's like you just on the opposite side of a hill, and he like turns and he's like climbs up and then tries to get back down, and she comes back down and it's like it must have been 30, 45 minutes in real time before he could like get down out of this tree and just haul ass. But I mean, you see her break, and it's like 50 miles an hour through a quakey patch, and you're just like, whoa, this is wild. Yeah, it's incredible, man. Yeah, Mother Nature, I've just decided, is very cruel. I mean, it can be very cruel. It's beautiful to look at, and like, they've got these great vistas around here in the mountains and everything, but man, like these, well, not this week, but these cold temperatures that we get and the snow and the moisture, and like, whew, it's brutal to be those guys. I saw something the other day that, what was it? So bison are the only mammal that turn into a snowstorm. They turn into the wind of the direction that the wind is blowing while it's snowing. Is that true? Or is that just some clickbaitable Facebook shit? No, it's true. I don't know if it's true all the time. Yeah. But like, I've got some cool pictures. Like I go out there to go feed, and it's like just blowing, and they have like little black rings around, like they're all snow covered, but then they have these little black rings around their eyes from like when they close them. But then when they open them, like you can just see like the unexposed to the snow, like fur around their eyeballs, and they just look like, ghosts or whatever. And that is because they're facing that blowing wind.
So yeah, I don't know if it's all the time, but I can definitely vouch for it does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they look goofy too. But
I saw that and I was like, this is kind of strange. I didn't read the article. I was just kind of scrolling through it, and it was like the classic picture, and like you're describing, like you see like the icicles hanging off of a bison's face, and they're like the only mammal that turns into the snow. And I was like, what is that for? Like, I wonder why that is.
I think they have like a natural thing to face what's bothering them, because if I go out like on an ATV or something, they'll just stop and turn and like come up to me, unless they're like know that I'm like coming at them fast. There are occasions where I do have to use an ATV to do some stuff, and like they take off, but they'll only run a short distance, and then they'll stop and congregate and all turn and face me. Or like when I'm trying to push them into a corral, you can't really push bison as far as like herding goes. You kind of have to lure them in. At least it's easier on them, but they always like to turn and face what's pushing on them. So I don't know if that's something to it. Like I saw this dog come through the field a while ago actually, but they were so curious, they started like going, rather than like trot away or like take their babies away, like they turned and faced it and they started approaching it, and the dog got intimidated and like took off because to the dog it probably looks huge, but so I don't know, there's something to that. They definitely like to face what's bothering them and confront it, I guess.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Crazy, man. How thick is their hide compared to like elk hide?
So I always thought it was pretty thick, and like definitely up on like certain like the neck area and in certain spots it's thick. But like when I talk to the guys at the processors, they're like, yeah, the bison hide's so thin, like it's easy for us to like, slice holes in when we're cutting the hides off. And so
they just have all that fur, makes you kind of think that it's thick.
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I mean, I still think it's thick. Like compared to like an elk, I think it's thicker.
Really?
But maybe they're used to like some of the cattle that they're bringing in and like processing. They see everything there, so they got yaks, bison, everything coming through. So they're probably used to, I don't know, maybe something thicker. But yeah, I think it's a thick.
Yeah, I would think. Like just looking at him, you're like, God, man, you got to be like impenetrable.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we give them shots, it's hard to like get in there sometimes.
Really?
Like, I have to replace my needle about every eight injections because it just gets dull that fast. So
wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to get into, but I'm trying to think like millimeters, like thickness, and it's tough to say because coming off like from a processing, like when they're just put down, it's a little thicker, and then when they dry out, it's a little thinner. But I don't know, like quarter inch, a little less.
Yeah,
some spots. So yeah. Anyway.
That's all. I mean, that's I kind of thought it might be thicker than that, but I think they just look, like they would just honestly just be like a brick shit house.
Well, yeah, and you think they're like impenetrable, like, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Like one other little thing I was thinking about, you mentioned something about like the calves, and there usually isn't like, so with the dog, for example, coming through the pasture, there's not much threat there. They don't really have much predators in this area, so they're fine, but the calves are actually born. They got like a nickname. They call them like red dogs, but they're born like a rusty color. Like they're born, like rust color. So it's like a brown. They look more red than brown. And then a couple months, as they grow, all that hair will either, I don't know if it drops or if it just changes color, but it does change to like a solid brown. And part of that is for the predators. So a lot of predators, not necessarily color blind, but they can't differentiate between green and that orange or that rust color. And so when the calves are like laid down in the field, if they don't move, then the predator doesn't really notice them.
Doesn't see them as well.
Yeah. So another cool thing about,
that's fucking wild, dude.
Benefit to bison. But yeah, there's just a lot of things like that. It's like, wow, these guys thought it through. Of course, they had like, thousands of years to kind of adapt,
to evolve. Oh, that's pretty wild. So what's, I just saw something the other day too. What's your thoughts on the release of the wolves into Colorado?
That one's a rough one.
I mean, being obviously a herder, so you're trying to like, just put my question in perspective. Like you've got thing that you're trying to nourish and build back, right? It's not,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to say that it would be any less if a wolf were to attack a cow or a calf or whatever.
Yeah.
But we're talking tens of thousands of, hundreds of thousands of beef
Yeah.
in our state versus the buffalo herds, which are tiny in retrospective.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could imagine it'd be like kind of maybe not where we are because they're not here, but they, hey,
they could be here. They could get here, I should
sure,
say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the bison, I don't think, I mean, I've seen like videos of them attacking bison. It's, just good, probably the weaker bison. So I'm not so too worried about the bison, but I do worry about a lot of the ranchers, especially up in that area. It's like, it's tough because like, the animal, like the wolves were coming in and maybe they wanted to come naturally. Like it was proven that there was, some already here kind of thing. So in that retrospect, like if they want to come here, like let them go, but also know that there was like some conflicting information as far as like, is Colorado habitable for wolves? Like, is it right to bring them like from their environment and bring them to like populated Colorado? I don't know. I don't think it's right to force them into that environment where they might not do well and thrive, So you're kind of, and especially in the middle of winter, that's tough because they don't have a den, they don't have anything established.
Sure.
So I feel bad for the wolves on that aspect, but feel bad for the wildlife and the livestock, I guess, that that they'll be needing to eat to survive. So like from a ranching aspect, like I do at our house, we have like sheep and llamas and cattle. And so for those guys, I mean, sheep, they have no defense mechanisms.
Sure.
They stomp their feet and run kind of a thing. So, they'd be sitting ducks for sure. So the thinking behind that is that, yes, wolves, they stay up in the high country and that's like where they want to live and be. But, when we get snow, like, do the deer and the elk still stay up there? No, they come down to lower ground because that's where the food and grass is. So wolves are going to follow those guys, and most of the time, those guys end up on or near ranches, and so they're just going to invite the wolves down, and then the wolves are going to figure out that cattle are a little easier to probably catch and definitely sheep are easier to catch than like deer and elk, and so then they'll have an easy food source, and once an easy food source is established, there's no reason to stop, kind of a thing. So I think it could be really tough for ranchers to deal with on that aspect. So,
sure.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't think it should have been decided by a vote by the general public that probably didn't know much about like biology and how all of it's going to work. Mostly the Front Range.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is here, so we got to deal with it.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were showing the patterns, right? Because they're obviously GPS tracked, and they're monitoring it, which is kudos. I guess that's good, so we can kind of learn some behaviors. And there was just some things I saw. It was like look how territorial the wolves are, and they're kind of but like the thing that's crazy to me is like, okay, look at the geographical range. Like, yeah, they're all in their own little pockets and they're doing their thing.
Right.
Eventually, they will commingle for breeding, and that'll kind of grow and expand.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many pups they can have for each, session. But if a female goes into heat twice a year, maybe they have 2 or 3 to a litter.
Yeah.
But what was crazy to me is like zoom in, and it's an aerial footage. And granted, they did release the wolves like miles apart, so it's understood. But if you look at the geographical range, that was the thing that like really kind of struck me. Is like, okay, this wolf, is not sitting still by any means. It's not like hanging out in 100 acres. It's, and I put that into perspective, like you're thinking about a mountain lion. A mountain lion, its range can be 70 linear miles.
Yeah.
That one mountain lion can go from here to Cortez. That could be its range.
And that's a long way. Like, it's not like driving your car. Like, you're going through like crossing rivers and fence and all
that's
that.
What people look at it and put that into perspective of like, I don't know what the range of a wolf is. Probably similar, especially like depending on the weather, if they're having to move, if they're following a herd, things like that. But it's like, okay, so it's moving. Let's just say even if it's 40 miles.
Yeah.
And how many did we release? Well, the colors that they show was like 12 wolves. Okay, so 40 times 12. So now we're taking up a huge, section of wildlife population, you know, deer and elk, you know, cow population, sheep population.
Recreational.
And so it's like, God, it just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I just see it. Sometimes I feel like we're playing a little bit with fire. And I know that the argument is there of like, well, they were naturally here. Yes, they were, but it wasn't necessarily that wolf that was released that was here. So I was like, that is true.
Wasn't that
But they were
wolf.
here hundreds of years ago. The physical geographic landscape has changed. It's not what it was when they did live here.
I mean, I-70.
Yeah, I mean, that's also maybe another reason why they no longer live here. And you know, so it's like that same conversation. Like, well, they exist perfectly fine in Yellowstone. Yeah,
Right.
Yellowstone is its own ecosystem.
Yeah.
You know, there's no hunting in you know, so it says that that's like what they do. But then, how many elk are killed by the wolves? You know, every year. It's crazy.
I've seen like huge numbers, like, you know, a third of elk populations. And granted, you know, you got to have balance and ecosystems. And so I'm not a biologist on that, so I can't like speak to what is healthy or not. But as far as like the elk and deer population, but I know that like we're not doing great in our area for either one of those.
As
right
far as
now.
our population,
Yeah,
it's down. I mean, they went to a lottery for
So,
even for residents, right? It went to for those of people that don't know, so Colorado used to be, as a resident, basically you almost had a guarantee to get a tag every year, right? Whether that be for archery or rifle. There's certain seasons, obviously, where it's different. And you have to have maybe some points, and you put into a lottery. But you're almost assured to get a tag every year. That's changed as of last year or this previous season, 2 years ago, right? So we all have to put into a draw system, right? Which is similar to New Mexico in that sense, right? But it's also because New Mexico's herd is really down as well.
Yeah.
So,
Other states. Yeah.
yeah, but what pisses, sorry, I don't want to go off on this. That pisses me off though, because now you've got out-of-state hunters that have a higher chance to get a draw tag than an actual Colorado residence, right?
Yeah.
And I do want people to be able to come here and experience that hunting, right? It can be life-changing. It can be life-altering. It's great, right?
It is.
We want that.
There's some revenue.
We also need the revenue.
Yeah.
But it pisses me off. So yeah, that's a huge thing is like, well, now our wildlife population has diminished over the years. So I'm trying to bring back the herd stronger.
Yeah.
Then we do other things like this. It's like, you know, we introduced the wolf population, which, like you say, was not really. If I've talked to anybody that works at, you know, Colorado Department of Wildlife, I don't know that it's 100% opposition to releasing wolves into the wild, but I'd say it's like 99% opposition.
Yeah.
It was driven by the public vote.
Yeah.
You know, and I have family members that voted for it.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, hold on, wait a second. Do you realize what happened? This is what's going to happen. And they go, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like I just thought it was like, you know, it's a natural being. We should put it back into its natural habitat. It's like that was the masses of the voters.
It
right?
was here. Why not bring it back? And totally, and that's kind of like plays into educating. Might be a strong word, but like giving the example of okay, well, when the food runs out in the high country, where are they going to go? And they come down and like you know, come to ranches, kind of a thing. Like that's going to happen every year now, and a lot of people didn't see that or didn't think that through, and. So yeah, it's
Well, it's because you don't have wolves on fucking Colfax and Sherman.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Maybe we should have released him there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just you feel bad for the wolf like being thrown out there, but at the same time, like I feel bad for livestock would be taken out by it too. So I did see, like, to go back to your talking about the range. There was an article, and I wish I would have remembered what state it was. I just read it like 2-3 weeks ago. They tracked a wolf, and his range was 1,000 miles.
I was going to say, it's far greater. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't want to speak out of turn. It's far greater than a mountain lion. So I threw out the 70 miles because I know that definitively.
And it could, and that's probably a one-off.
No,
maybe,
I mean,
right?
no, but it's like 3 or 4 times more than a mountain lion. So, for those people that are listening we're sitting here in Bayfield, Colorado to Cortez, that's not 70 miles.
Right.
And so I was, but so let's say 4 times to be, conservative.
Yeah.
That's fucking massive.
It's a big chunk of the state.
That's fucking here to Moab.
Yeah. I mean, you drive to Denver, what is that, like 350 miles?
Yeah.
It's probably close to that.
Yeah.
So,
and to think that the thing that's like, what's concerning to me is like, yes, we've talked about like, there's a strong chance that it will cause an impact to livestock, right? I think we're all aware that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not a if, it's a when.
Yeah.
The bigger thing to me is that a wolf moving into an area that we didn't intend as human beings for it to get to.
Yes.
We released it in northern Colorado because there's a larger spread of land up there, right? And but my concern is like it'd be really easy for any wolf to come down into the San Juan Mountain Range, right?
Yeah.
Where we're at.
Yep.
Very easy, and they probably will in a short time, 2 or 3 years maximum. We'll have wolves.
I would think so.
You know, in our local area, and that's what's concerning to me is that all of a sudden, like, they're not going to stay away from populated areas, you know, and so it's like now all of a sudden you take something. Vast majority of people go on a hike, right? They'll go. Let's say you hike up, you go to Vicito Creek, and you go on a 5-mile hike all day. Nobody up there. The majority of people don't even think for 2 seconds about a mountain lion. Yeah. Not even for a second, right? But yeah, you see mountain lion sightings and talk to CBW anymore, and they're like, it's hundreds, dude. It's hundreds in that area. Hundreds of mountain lions. And people are just hiking. Most of the time they don't have any, maybe they have a bear spray. I'm like, good luck, dude. That, you know? Yeah. And so I just look at it from that perspective, being a hunter and like looking at like, here's a problem with our mountain lion population. And that's a known problem. It's like, this is a really scary animal. Yeah. And we're aware of it. And like, we're having to deal with that and manage that. And that has like a huge uproar and a public backlash, right? If anybody goes out and harvests a mountain lion, it's massive repercussions from a public stance. So then, all right, let's add wolves on top of that. Yeah. They're going to share the same space. They're going to share the same animal, right? They're going to share the same wildlife.
Competing for
I
the
don't know,
same
man.
food. It could be bad.
It could be. Like, I don't know. Maybe we can keep a handle on it. But I have buddies that live in states where they can harvest wolves. Yeah. And they put pictures up, man, and they're proud of it. Yeah. And you talk about public backlash. Holy shit! How could you kill a wolf? Well, they're a problem here. Yeah. They're a problem in parts of Canada. They're a problem in these areas. Yeah. And it's like we have to, because like I say, if you have 12 females and they can have 2 litters a year, it doesn't take long to have, packs of.
That's a good point.
And so I know that that's like basic math and things people should be aware of. Yeah. I just don't think.
It definitely wasn't thought through. Like, I know now that I'm going to be taking protection when I go on hikes. Before I never did. Like, and it's not, just because of the wolf mostly, but, there was a creepy video that I saw the other day, not talking about wolves, but they were talking about mountain lions. And this gentleman, he was going out, and I wish I could remember like the name and all this stuff, but he goes out and was recording people. I don't know if it's public or if it's on his land, but he was recording people like on walking paths and recording the mountain lion watching these people on these paths. And he had no idea who these people were, but he identified as like human A was monitored 3 times by this lion on his walk there. And then like another time when he walked back and the dude had no idea. So like those sightings that you're talking about, like, or the run-ins, like it could be a little more. I think the lions are very, they're stealthy. So like they don't, they're smart, but like, how many times have we been out there walking and we're like, you feel like that eerie feeling, like it could be something, like it could be a lion.
Dude, oh man, I lived, so when I didn't first move here, but my parents, probably in like early 2000s, they built a log cabin out in Beaver Meadows. We lived in Pine Springs Ranch. Okay. And so across, if you're looking due north, you got Wickinson, Severn Peak, and then it trickles over to Forest Lakes. Well, anyways, so Dr. Dan, his son, and I grew up together. Drew, cool. Great friends, and we had a couple of spots up there that you could go and do some rock climbing, right? Just bring a crash pad, and so we're sitting in my house. He's out there visiting. Like, hey, let's hike up and over. There's like a shallow part of Wickinson Peak as it kind of starts to taper down. Let's hike up and see if we can find anything to kind of go boulder. And so at that time, much younger, we get stoned out of our minds. We're like, let's go fucking rock climbing. Cool, man. We've got crash pads on our back. We're walking up there. And we get up and over the ridge and we're like kind of looking like, oh, cool. There's this like little section of sandstone. Well, maybe we're thinking maybe it hardens out. And so we see like a little trail. Again, really, really high and not really putting two and two together. And so we drop off into this little, it's kind of like a crack in between the sandstone. And we're trying to get down to something closer to the land. So if we can find a harder section, right? So it doesn't break off when we fall.
Gotcha.
And so we get in there and I'm kind of like overtaken with this like this smell where you're like what the hell, you know? And it smells like urine and it smells just like animal. It smells like it's not wet dog, it's not wet cat. It's I don't know. It smells like something other than like, you know, I'd harvested deer before. I'd harvested elk, and it's not that same musky smell that it's just something. And like you're like. It gets cool and a breeze shifts and you're like, okay, it's like hairs on your back, kind of like, what the fuck is going on? And then we look up and Drew's ahead of me. He's down slightly lower, probably a foot or two change in elevation. You know, he's maybe 5 feet ahead of me. Yep. And I'm like, stop. And I look up and I see blood streaks up to a little bit of a ledge, right, in this sandstone. And I step back and I maybe like move 3 feet. And I just see a deer carcass and bones. And I'm like, Drew, we gotta get out of here, man. We gotta get out of here right now. And so we back out watching. And the whole time, man, we get up and over and we're just like scooting through. But the scariest thing in that section of the mountains is you've got low ponderosa, right? And so maybe it's kind of some new growth. And so they're not real tall. You maybe have like 8 feet clearance, right? And it's all, there's no undergrowth. It's not that, not tons of scrub oak. Yep. But so what cats will do is they'll hang out in that lower limb and they'll attack a prey, right? And so I'm looking the whole time walking out, just kind of squatting. No guns, no nothing. Again, stoned out of my mind. Now I'm scared and stoned. And I'm like trying to get back down. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And that, you know, I've had a couple more run-ins with cats after that, you know, and one even before that, where it was like and I've talked about on here, like the shrill, like early morning hunting, glassing a meadow, and just, and I'm like, oh God. But that instance, it like put the fear of God in me. I was like, holy shit, man! Like we were really close, walking into a cat's den, and I would be willing to bet, 1,000%, he knew we were there, she knew we were there, and they were watching us. Yeah. It's a blessing that it didn't fucking kill us. Yeah. That it didn't maul us at least.
It was just watching to see what you're going to do. Yeah. Like, okay, let's wait till they start messing with me and then.
Ooh, dude, this fucking, they're creepy, man.
It's a nasty sound.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine last year, was out archery hunting and I'll start doing this too now. So the binos with the pistol, he like saw one in the bushes, went to turn like this and it leaped and he pulled it like this. As he's falling backwards. Whoa. Shit you not. Crazy. Yeah, right up Junction Creek. Oh. Just outside of Durango. Yeah. A mile from town. Like a mile. You know, and like, whew, those animals more than anything. I know we don't have, you know, we got black bear and everybody thinks they're cute and cuddly. I've had a couple run-ins and they also can scare the shit out of you when they see you. Most of the time they freak out. But, you know, it's just the stealthiness. A guy I used to work for, he was just like, don't worry about mountain lions. I'm like, well, fuck that. Well, I gotta be. He's like, by the time they attack you, you're dead. Like,
could be right.
You know, and I'm like, brother. Yeah.
Before you even know they're there.
It's like, that animal just, oof, man.
It's eerie. Like, you watch, like, I don't know if you ever played or, you know, watched cats or toyed with them. Like, for how little they are, they're pretty darn strong. And you think of something that's like our weight and more, multiply that strength and like, wow, you know, you're dealing with, but then just like the way that they like sit there and analyze and like, they're just like intimidating, just looking, like, just like if they're looking at you, like super intimidated right now. Like
they're dead eyes, man. And they don't move. They just like freaking, if they're kind of watching you, it's just, I hate that.
It's like they don't have feelings almost.
Oh, they have no soul. No, they don't have a soul. No.
But, well, I mean, emotions, I guess, like, I am scared because of the humans near. It's probably like, no, this might be good. Like, something to play with. I don't know. But Yeah, it's we've had a lot of bear and bear and lion kills with our sheep, and yeah, like smart. Like one of our first lion kills was there at our property, and he buried the carcass, and so we had like the game warden come out, and they like set up a snare to try to trap it, and my dad actually went out and parked his truck with the headlights like where he could flip them on and be like on the buried carcass and where the snare would have been, and tried to sit up all night and like wait for it, like parked out of the way but like enough, and made it till like early morning, dozed off for like 20 minutes, he said, and then like woke up, and when he woke up it was light and the carcass was gone, and like the cat had drug it right over the snare and the trap that they had set, and like taken it another like 100 yards. It's like they're smart creatures. They're just like sitting there waiting, like, okay, he's gonna pass out. Okay,
yeah. Oh, dude, they're creepy, man. They're fucking creepy. Yeah. What's I was reading, I think it's been a while ago, right before I was talking to a guy. I think they can kill something upwards of like 9 deer per week or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, they'd come in and annihilate
because
like 7 sheep in a
night.
night.
I mean, it's like they'll kill it and they don't eat it necessarily right there. Like, you know, I mean, it's honestly a dog with a bone.
Yeah.
Like they'll take it and like they'll make different mounds like around their den or their kind of area. And it's like they've got like, I know where that food is at when I need it, right? And they'll mark it and
come back.
Oh, dude, fuck that animal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Same with bear for us. Like probably our majority of our kills with our livestock, sheep, were bears. We had one summer we lost 120 lambs to bear. It's a lot, like 120 animals that you took up with and you didn't come back with. And there was all sorts of assistance from, the state to come and help us. But again, like you're taking a defenseless animal pretty much up into predator territory.
Mm-hmm. You guys take them up to high country?
We did. We used to, up on Missionary Ridge.
Oh, okay.
And then a winter range was down in New Mexico by Aztec.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we incorporated the livestock protection dogs, so that helped us. But
what kind of dog is like a
Great Pyrenees?
Oh yeah,
or Akbash or Anatoly.
Dude,
so,
those we had a Pyrenees. It was funny. She was a mix, but she was like a Pyrenees mixed with something. Anyway, she was black.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And it was. Yeah. I mean, but as big as a normal, but it awesome had that dogs. Like Pyrenees like look.
Yeah.
Oh man, she was a hell of a dog. She dude, she got hit
by a car.
Yeah. Well, so it was crazy. So we had just moved to where were we at? Oh, I went to finish some school in Arizona, and so we moved down there. And my mother-in-law like calls like, hey, sorry, I don't know what to say, but like, her name was Doobie, right? Because again, we were young, smoked a lot of pot. So her name was Doobie. And so anyway, so my mother-in-law calls me, she's like, hey, she hasn't been home for 2 days. We think, she either might have gotten, taken by a mountain lion or whatever. Yeah. And so we're like, my wife goes to the, it's her first dog as a, but we went to go live in an apartment or whatever. And so we couldn't take, so I was like, and then like we get a call for like probably 2 weeks later. Right. And she's like, hey, Doobie came back home, but like her entire hind end is like not working. So they're like, but anyways, like she had been out there in the wild. Wow. Like thank God she's a Pyrenees because those dogs can just somehow just live without anything, right? They just do their thing. And she comes back. So she lived the last part of her days like basically having enough to like stand herself up on like broken legs, but couldn't use her back end. But it was, just the craziest dog.
Yeah.
But super like family was good. Anybody else, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like what you raise them with as pups, they grow up like, so we had sheep, so we put them with sheep when they're puppies, and they protect the sheep. And like Richard Perry, Foxfire Farms down there, we were kind of laughing one time because he's like, I just raise them with the chickens as pups, and like so, most dogs will go out there and like try to kill all the chickens, and like these Pyrenees, since they were raised with the chickens, like they protect the chickens, and so like he could eat like 100 of them a day, but no, he's just like, nope, these are my crew. I got to hang out with these guys. I got to protect these things. Yeah, awesome. Incredible dogs. They were awesome.
Are you guys pretty close with Foxfire? Foxfire Farms?
So, hate
Maybe
to,
not
like,
the bison, but like as far as you guys, because you're
like
also sort of intertwined
Yeah,
into
so
the agritourism world around
we
here.
used to work with them since they started with sheep.
Oh, really?
That's why there's a sheep on their wine bottles, because they wanted to like homage to the sheep, because that's how they started. And I think they finally phased out altogether last I talked to them. But since we worked, so like sometimes with shearing, we would so you bring in a crew to come shear your sheep, and sometimes it's easier for them just to come to one spot and have people bring the livestock or the sheep and have them shorn all at once, rather than pick up and go set up and then drop down and come back to do another guy. So we'd kind of like bring animals together to get shorn. And so, yeah, we'd work together for the livestock. Like it's not like this, you don't see people as your competitors, like at least we never did, with like because we were like one of a handful of only a couple people that had sheep growing up, so you kind of like got together and knew everybody, and everyone got along pretty good and helped out, shared tips, with predators and that kind of thing. But
I don't really know anything about them from a livestock stance, but the last time I was out there was for like a wine tasting, or and then they had, I don't know, whatever, like a bunch of like a petting zoo or something like.
Oh yeah,
it was like they're kind of part of that. That like agritourism world, and I know like there's like a big push for that. And Hannah was kind of talking about certain things, like kind of bringing the power back to the small farm, whether that's buying your meat locally or whether that was doing hay rides and things like that. And it was kind of interesting, because you just don't think about it when we don't live and breathe in that world. And so it's like, it was one of those things that you hear about some of the bigger farms, but then like she was telling me that, there was like, this person, I don't know if we got all of it on camera, but it was like, there's this farm that's doing this, and there's this farm. And it's just like, so you guys have alpacas and you got sheep. And so it's like, are you trying to, I guess, leverage that as far as like agritourism is concerned?
Yeah, probably not as much as we could. Like that was kind of there was two reasons to kind of get the llamas to protect the sheep. Because
llamas protect sheep?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, spit at a bear?
Yeah, well, they're like their size is a little different, and they can, I don't want to say intimidate, but yeah, like there's a lot of, kind of like some people use donkeys for protection. Like a lot of people have used llamas and they've been effective. Huh. I don't know about bears, but like coyotes for sure. And that was our problem. We had coyotes come through and annihilate like pretty much 2/3 of our little sheep herd one summer. And so it started to get them for protection, but then also we've got a small little like cabin that we Airbnb in the back of our place, and we thought it'd be fun to have, most people that come and stay there are from the city. So have them be able to like pet or feed and interact with the animals and give them an experience versus like, just a place to crash. And they're there and they can feed them, but the llamas that we got were from a rescue. And so they aren't like halter broken or anything, and they're a little timid around people. So it's not like you can just go out and like start petting them.
Sure.
So it didn't work out as much as we thought, but it's cool just to give them that experience. Like a lot of people will be like, man, it's so quiet out here, we can't sleep. Or it's so dark out here. It's like, we can see the cabin from our house, and like the lights are just on like 24/7. Like, because driving like, into our driveway, there's no like, street lights like they're used to driving in the city. And so, I think it's an experience for sure, either way, if it's good or bad. But, so yeah, we've tried we wanted to incorporate that a little bit more, as far as like being able to experience like ag and like learn about ag a little bit. And so, we're hopefully going to be able to transition into that, as far as more of like an experience, or like I don't think would go as far as like Foxfire, as far as like a petting zoo or anything like that. They've been great about trying new things, and the wine has been awesome for them. So, but I think you just got to trial and error for a lot of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see like, we'll have like some people will come out with dogs and we'll just say, hey, if they're haven't been around livestock, maybe it's not great to leave them off leash and let them go after the sheep or the cows. But for the most part, people just like come out and they're just like amazed at just how like peaceful things can be. Like they're used to like their house being, in a subdivision, I guess, and noise and sounds and everything. And they'll come out here and they're just amazed with and the way that the cabin sits. There's a nice view of the La Platas and the women like north up to Vicedo and even out to Beaver Meadows. And so it's a good backdrop for them to sit and enjoy, and the sunsets are incredible. So we hope it's a good experience. But yeah, we'd like to incorporate a little more of like that hands-on ag interaction with it. So
yeah, I was just kind of, it's just something you don't really think about it. Like again, when you don't live and breathe in that world, it's kind of like you don't even realize that, there's truly an industry. I mean, obviously we're all aware of agriculture and, raising animals, but like I never thought about it. And like when Hannah talked to me about it, it was like, like this can be a huge revenue generator for some of these smaller farms that are taking hits. And some of the things that she brought up to me was like just some of the regulations, the regulatory industries that are putting, and it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, like the amount of regulations that are put on some of the smaller farms, it makes it to where it's damn near impossible, and it makes it to where it's hard to be affordable.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can definitely do it. And some years, depending on how cash flow is, like we'll go in with a couple of people and buy a beef and sometimes maybe like a pig. And, it's great. And there's other times where it's like, God, I'm not really sitting on that kind of cash. Like, and it's
freezer space.
Yeah. And freezer space and stuff like that. And, so we still try and like my family and I will try and eat healthy, but we end up having to like, go to City Market or something to get some of this. And it's like, and I know definitively like the research that I've done and like the podcasts that I've listened to, like, that like, even if it has a fucking green stamp on it, man, it's not the same. Like you can't guarantee like how many preservatives are in that. Like how long has that beef been packaged? Like how, was it shipped frozen?
Right.
Like how long has it been on the shelf? Like there's just so many things.
Is it all from one animal?
Yeah. Is it all from one animal? Like it's just crazy when you start to kind of think about it. But getting back to the ability for a farm to like survive with like imposed regulations was kind of new. Like it doesn't shock me that there is tons of regulations, but I come from an oil and gas background, where like very well aware of regulations. Like, and some of them are good and some of them are bad, right? Some of them are a huge fucking overreach, and it's like now we can't produce this oil, and people wonder why X amount of dollars per gasoline gallon is so well. Part of that is because of regulations, but then you start to hear and see all these other things, but you don't realize too that it's far healthier for you to go to like a local ranch or a local farm and buy your beef there. And then you go, well, why is it so expensive? Well, like we're not unlike anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's like now we you say like USDA processing plants, like for us to be able to sell this beef, we have to do that. Yeah. It's a good thing in theory. Yeah. Right. We want to make sure that the meat's being processed, and like we're not going to give you some type of tainted beef and things are, but there's also an imposed cost that goes against that. Yeah. And then there's other fees and there's all these taxes. Well, it's like when you're this gigantic conglomerate and you make 50% of the country's beef, you can afford to kind of control it because you're doing such a volume approach. But when you're little and you're this farm, it makes it impossiple, Even like James Ranch. Yeah. Like they're a big operation. Yeah. Do a lot of business,
they're
right?
Big. Yeah.
Their shit's not cheap.
No.
It's way easier to go get a T-bone from Walmart. And I'm just saying for the masses to look at it like, I could go get 2 T-bones for $20. James Ranch, it's going to cost me $40. Like I kind of got to go this route. Yeah. And it's a damn shame because the reality of it is like, if that person could afford to go to James Ranch or wherever, any farm, I just say James Ranch because it's a bigger one around here. Right. If they could afford to go there, there's exponential benefits to getting that. Not just even from knowing where your beef came from or knowing where your hog came from, right? But like, and there's nutrient benefits. But there's also benefits that keep those dollars, bred and fed here
locally. Like
and that's the thing that like. After talking with Hannah, I started researching all this stuff, and I was already kind of a nerd with it anyways. I I don't like to use that term of like, local first always.
Right.
It's because then it all of a sudden it's a catchphrase, and it's just like you're just all most
Trendy.
not most, but yeah, it's this trendy thing. And then like if you're not helping the problem, it's just like we do live in a capitalistic society where we're all in this to make money.
Yeah.
How much money are you making? You want to be local first? Reduce your profits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like you know what I mean. And so I don't like to use that term because I think it's like, well, how local first are you being?
Right.
You're trying to push local first, but yet you're also trying to make 45% margins.
Yeah.
Can you make 20 and you know what I mean? But then to ask somebody that, it's like, well, could you,
it's tough.
it's an unfortunate deal that there are those restrictions that are pretty damn heavy on a small farm. And I don't, maybe restriction A over here for corporate guy is a little bit less for some tax loophole or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the restriction over here that, it's like, I equate it to like a small business, right? So small business by the government's definitions is less than 100 people and X amount of $1 million per year. You know how many fucking businesses don't have 100 employees?
Yeah.
And don't make $30 million a year?
Yeah.
You still get a small business grant if you make $30 million a year?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like that, And so I look at it from
yeah.
a farming perspective or an agriculture perspective. It's a damn shame that we can't truly afford to buy local. And there's some people that can. And that that's awesome that they've got them. But, 80% of people can't.
Yeah.
They can't afford to go spend twice as much on beef or chicken or even eggs at a natural grocer's or a local farm. They have to go to Walmart. They have to go to City Market. They got to go to Albertsons.
Yeah.
And that's the big hurdle. We didn't have time to get into it with Hannah, but I was like, what is how do we circumvent that? How does that get better? Because
it's tough.
That's the problem that I want to how do we make this more accessible for people?
Yeah.
A
lot of those regulations are pushed down by people that are not involved in ag. And so it's kind of like the Wolff thing, like Denver voted for the Wolves to be introduced. It's like we are imposed these new rules by folks that are, way removed from ranching and farming, so they don't understand the impacts that it will have. They can see numbers and stuff, but, they say like, if you're involved in ag and like a rancher, in 10 years, over the 10 years, you can plan on breaking even 4 of those, losing money 3 and making money 3. So when you do make that money, you got to put it aside and anticipate those down years. And you never know what's going to happen. So it always is tough to, you always hear people say, oh, ranching's hard and it's tough and you can't make any money. And yeah, it is tough and it's hard. You can make money, but it's not always about the money. I think a lot of people that are in ag are doing it because of the lifestyle that it provides and for them and their family and, open space. And I'm sure glad that I grew up we had 160 acres and I could just go out and ride my motorcycle and wherever I wanted. And it was great. It's the best type of upbringing I could have had, I think. So there's other benefits to it, the lifestyle that it brings, Of course, you do have to make money. So ranchers they need to diversify a little bit. And, the Airbnb stuff helps. And trying new things is always, sometimes it'll break you. But, you got to play with it a little bit. They say and I think there's an educational thing that needs to happen. The average human is 4 generations removed from agriculture. So there's literally people that think that, the milk and the beef and the lettuce, they come from the grocery store. It's just out back and they gather it up and they bring it up front kind of a thing. And it's hard to explain all that. There's a lot that happens from that seed that's planted to the carrot that you get in the grocery store. That all the hands that it changes, through on its delivery all the way there. A lot of times you got the producer and the grower that's doing most of the legwork, and then it goes to a buyer or that has the distribution connections that it goes to the grocery stores, and so it's tough. But it's around the clothes we've got on, all the food we ate today. That's all agriculture related, and So it's there and it has to happen. Like we kind of touched on it earlier with like the bison, you know, take away the food source and you don't have much, you know, you can really control people that way. There's a lot of power in the food source. So kind of, I don't really, I hate to like get down on all that kind of stuff, but it's, you know, it can be tough in the ag business, but there's a lot of, you know, seems like lately you see a lot of stuff about emissions, you know, methane and cow farts and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know like what, from what I hear, like social media and all that kind of stuff, you know, it make it sound like cows are the cause of climate change and all this kind of stuff. And so I went and like was looking, and it's like 4% of the U.S.'s emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, is coming from livestock, which, you know, isn't that much compared to like transportation or these other large industries, you know. And so I think they said that agriculture on the whole, these are like 21 stats, was made up like 10% of the greenhouse gases that produced in the U.S., which wasn't on the chart. If you see like below it, there's like 12% offsets by, what was it? Managed lands and forests. And so I don't know if they're talking about ag land, but whatever, they was offsetting 12%. So I don't know what percent was ag land that or if that was the managed lands they're talking about, but they mentioned Forest Service, like, so that like federal lands, and like 35% of federal lands are used for agricultural grazing leases. So, I mean, even if you just take that, the agriculture at 10%, and then you take off 4%, so say it's a third of that 12% is Forest Service, like grazing lands, you know, you're down to 6% of, you know, greenhouse gas emissions. So in some ways, ag gets a bad rap for, you know, that kind of stuff. But I think there's just like this lack of education by like the ag community, I guess, by putting like the correct information out there. Like, is there a big difference between eating organic and non-organic? Well, it just depends on how that product was raised. You can use as much pesticides and herbicides on organic as non-organic, you know? So I think it comes down to, if you know, like kind of the local thing, I hate to, you know, it's like, it's expensive, but that's truly like the healthiest food that you're going to get. That's why a lot of people like hunt deer and elk. Like that's probably like the healthiest meat that you're going to get.
Sure.
And so like for us, it's great. We switch off, we trade out some of our pasture to a neighbor, and he grazes his cows on it. And so in return, we get beef. And so we've got this fresh, like there's nothing added. It's just, you know, 100% grass-fed beef that we get every year. And it's a blessing because we get it at you know, almost for free. And it's incredible meat. And so we're lucky in that aspect. So, but yeah, and then another little quick thing, like with ag, is a lot of folks are talking about how there's, you know, this corporate farming, and it does exist. Like there's out there, but a lot of, I forget the exact stat, but I want to say for some reason 89%, but that might be a little high. Anyway, somewhere around 80% of the food that we eat was actually raised by small farms and ranches. So that was pretty reassuring for me to hear. Like, I think that's American Farm Bureau. I can try to find that stat, but I thought that was,
so 80% of the food that's in grocery stores,
yes,
or just all encompassing
stores,
like consumed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
even though there's the coined term of, you know, corporate farming, corporate, you know, slaughterhouse, whatever, you still have a bulk of the agricultural land, or whether it be a farm, selling, you know, to Tyson, or selling, you know, or whatever, getting it to.
Yeah, it's got to get processed.
Yeah.
The average farmer and rancher guy is not going to be processing meat.
Sure.
So yeah, there has to be like that transitions to like a feedlot or something, and then the animals get like harvested, processed. But yeah, there's a number on that too. I forget what it is. Again, it was pretty high as far as the number of family-owned operations versus like corporate-owned. And
Sure.
there's kind of some gray area there because a lot of farms and ranches incorporate into like LLC or an S corp or something like that, and so we don't know if that's being clumped into like corporate farming or not. But for liability purposes, I mean, it's no brainer to LLC or incorporate your business. So
I wonder too, like, and I'm not trying to play devil's advocate necessarily, but again, small business, family owned farm, right? So there's a huge, like, what is the definition?
Right.
In my mind, a small business is me and my wife trying to flip a house in Aztec and make some cash, right? Yeah, that works. But it's also the guy that's got 99 employees and can make $29 million a year by the government standards.
It's crazy.
So I would ask the question of like, well, what is a family owned farm? Because there's some farms in Texas that are, just thousands upon thousands of acres. And so, absolutely. If they've got 3,000 head of cow and they're selling, to these, I say Tyson. I guess I shouldn't say Tyson, but everybody knows that you can go to Walmart and get a Tyson chicken now, right?
Right.
So we know that brand. I'm just trying to paint the commonality. But yeah, I would question what does that look like? And if that's the case, I would absolutely, I can imagine that the numbers are real, that 80%, because it's like, well, all right, Jesse, your farm is not, you're raising what, 10 cows or, what I'm saying? But you're not raising 4,000 and still considered to be a family owned farm.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Most, and a lot of those ranches that are big and operating like that, they've been in family for generations. And so they might even have like their own, well, some of them have like their own distribution and direct to sales and that kind of thing. I think you've seen a lot of ag that are trying to market their products direct to the consumers is a great move too.
Sure.
The internet helps like get the word out, and just another avenue for them to, because you can ask for premium dollars for that kind of stuff, and rather than putting the animals on a truck or selling your potatoes as bulk, to a buyer. So it'd be great to put a little more power into the the producer's hands. And some don't want it. I just want to raise the cows and then get them to that first age and then sell them, and then everyone else can do it after that. So yeah, it's all like complex. It can be complex, but I just think that the ag community, we and that's, I kind of hope to do it, is educate those that are not in ag about everything that does go on and can go on with ag, and why things are done the way that they are done. Like, for example, when we trailed our sheep on the roads, a lot of folks would be like, why do you do that? Like, put the sheep at risk, and traffic jams and all that kind of stuff. And there was part of it was that it was for the well-being of the animal. Like, it was actually, aside from like if you're driving through, it's probably stressful for drivers, but like if you're out there on the road, like walking and trailing with the animals, it really isn't that bad. It's kind of peaceful. And occasionally you get some disgruntled folks, but for the most time we had a great experience. Like, I think we only had one animal that actually passed away from like being hit by a vehicle. Sorry. But it's just taking the time to say, okay, well, we do it because it's less stressful for these animals to get loaded onto a straightened semi that they've never been on, and only trucked for 70 miles and then unloaded. But we can't do it all at once. And then we got to, so we have to do trips back and forth. And then, so you've got animals there, animals here. So you got to split your, so herders. So basically we've got someone that stays with the sheep 24/7 for protection. And then also like, where we went and graze, there's no fences. So they have to contain the animals and, make sure they stay where they're supposed to be, kind of a thing. So split up herds that way. And potentially the mothers and babies, most of the time they stay together, but they're probably going to get separated on those trucks.
Sure.
So it's going to be harder for them to find each other when they get there. And then you got the cost involved and everything. So by the end of it, it was, I think we only trucked once, and that was during the fire year on Missionary Ridge. So they closed the permits. We couldn't go up there. So they had to stay at the ranch until like midsummer. So, but there's other ways that people want to do their own operations their own way, and they should be able to do that. But it can be a great learning experience for others to like see like, well, geez, why do you do it that way? It sounds like that's like dangerous or bad for the animals. And if you take that time to explain it to some folks, it sometimes helps, you know?
You feel like there's opposition from the community in kind of explaining, like meaning they're trying to like safeguard the ag culture, like you know we don't want to let the rest of the world experience it, you know, kind of. You're saying like like we got the secrets, but we don't necessarily want it to go out, right? Because if you bring in the outside world, then they're going to change it. They're going to make it something that you don't want it to be.
Some of it, yeah. I think. So wait, are you talking like the ranching community or like the Bayfield community looking at ranching?
I just mean I just mean the ranching community. Like, have you seen? Like,
no.
Like, do you feel like opposition from the community to like explain to the general public?
No.
Or okay.
No. If anything, ag is trying to recruit new people to get, because there's a shortage of 2%. It's actually a little less than 2% now of U.S. population is involved in ag. So the 2% is feeding 98% of our country. And that 2% is actually getting less and less because of cost. I mean, land values really, the barrier to entry to get into ag is really difficult. Sure. I mean, the land alone will break you. And then you got to buy the cattle, you got to buy the improvements, you got to buy the irrigation system, you got to pay for the water rights. Like, there's just so much involved that the average person probably doesn't take into consideration. But for those that do, that get involved in ag, it's great. So like we're probably actively out there looking to like get young farmers and ranchers involved and more people involved in ag, because it's the average age of your farmer and rancher in the U.S. is I want to say 55 to 58 years old. So they're phasing out.
Yeah.
So someone's got to take over the reins. So yeah, I think if anything, there is some. There might be some questioning on like why certain things, maybe like restrictions or regulation wise, why that stuff's coming to like farming and ranching. But for the most part, people are really willing to get new and young folks involved in ag.
Yeah, there's a couple of people locally that I knew kind of from the bull one. Do you know Jim Bullwan and his son?
I don't.
So they're Bayfield, Ignacio kind of local, but Jim was at BP forever. And oddly enough, I needed to buy some hay bales for 4th of July parade this year. So I was like, Facebook, hey, then I found somebody.
Awesome.
Went out there and I was like, hey, Jim, what are you doing? He's like, quit BP and started up a ranch with my kid. And this is what we're doing, raising cows and raising hogs. And,
that's awesome.
And I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. So it's like, just to see somebody sort of start that and be pretty damn proud of it. It's like, it's a, I would think it's a labor of love, or a love of labor, but, it's not, it seems like a lot of work, but it was definitely kind of good to be like, all right, see somebody newly getting into it and actively awesome. Like, hey, emailing like, hey, we're getting ready. Do you guys want to put into the pool and, we can get you some beef? And
it's refreshing.
It was definitely kind of like a, man, like, all right, sweet. And it's a small operation. I think maybe they might've had like, I don't know, 6-8 head of cow and maybe 6 hogs, and so it was like,
awesome.
It's not, they're trying to make it big, but they're trying to make sure that they've got repeat business. And, we did that for a few years running. And it's like, you kind of stay with this one, one farm and you know what you're getting, the people, you can go out there and handshake them. And it's a really cool feeling. And, for anybody listening to this, like, I do make a point of, like it's always going to be more expensive to go local than it is to go to Walmart. Yeah. Right. The volume, the dollars, but you can make it pretty inexpensive. Go in like to buy, I don't know what beef is selling for right now. We didn't get one this year, but I mean, if know, what is it? $1,200?
Depend. Okay. I thought you were talking about like from the grocery store. Yeah, I think for like, you're talking like half beef or something?
Yeah.
Probably something like that.
So, I mean, so you go in, like,
13,
4, 4, 5, 6 families, whatever, and go in and split it up. It's just like, hey, we're all going to pay into this. And, I mean, you get, ice chests full of beef and put it in the deep freeze, and it makes it's still, if you go dollar for dollar, it's still going to be more expensive, but at least it's there. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you find yourself kind of, forcing yourself to use it and cook it, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're like, oh shit. All right. Well,
dollar for dollar, it might actually be cheaper depending on where you're like, so if it's like a well-raised animal, grass-fed, that's, you know, that pound at the, you know, like a health food store is going to be like between like $8 and $12 for 1 pound.
Sure.
And if you're doing like a half beef, you're probably getting it at, you know, between 3 and 5 pounds, like the whole entire animal. So you're getting like ribeye for like 3 or 5 a pound.
Sure,
so,
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it like that, yeah. So I think it's a big obstacle for people to jump because like, and most farms, like they'll have enough people, you know, depending on who they are, to where you may buy like a half beef, right? And they've got the other half pretty much sold. But, you know, most farms, like, it's like when you hear, let's just say it's $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, people are like, what?
Yeah. Up front, that's a lot of money.
It is, but you know, split it across a couple families, you know, then you've got you've got meat for 8-10 months.
Yeah. Ours
you know, so we'll go through pork faster than anything. Like if we get sausage, like we will burn through pork, and it's like, damn, because we eat sausage, I mean, almost every morning, like that's sausage, bacon. And so we will go through a hog really fast. But we always end up with, you know, with some beef kind of left over, right?
Yeah,
and,
we do too.
And especially too, like if you're hunting this year and you don't harvest or something, and a buddy's like, hey man, I'll bring over a nice chest, like you didn't, you know, kind of, all right, well, I'll give you some beef. You know, sometimes it's nice to be like, I like venison, I like elk, you know, but I want a freaking ribeye.
And sometimes, you know, there's like, I don't, I prefer like grass-fed kind of food, but sometimes you go to a steakhouse and you can tell like, okay, this was finished on some corn because it's nice and, you know, it's got some good flavor.
It does change the flavor for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, at least I don't know. I think the comfortability of knowing where your food's coming from is a big deal. Because and I feel bad for people because the majority of people don't, and they just don't have access to it.
Right.
So again, I go, you know, it's kind of a cliche term, but I think it's a damn shame that not everybody can experience that. So, but it is really cool to see, like, and I don't know how, like, I haven't bought into it, but I do see, and I've read a couple things like about, like, you know, Butcher Box and things like that. They do tell you like what farm it's come from.
Yeah, that's
you know,
pretty cool.
how it's processed and things. And like you say, you can pay the premium and get like grass fed and you know, however they're finishing off the beef before it goes to slaughter. But yeah, I mean, there is companies like that, I think, that are trying to get, you know, more like direct to consumer, which is a good deal. It gives people access to it.
It's great for the farmers. It's great for that business because they're, you know, putting their butts on the line trying to get that all organized. And shipping and regulations, it's tough. So, yeah. There's something I heard the other day. Sorry to.
No, you're good.
Yeah. What did I hear? I'm gonna murder it here, but basically the gentleman was like, well, you know, a lot of people think about like healthcare costs and then like food costs. And they're like, you know, sometimes if you think about your food costs, if you're eating healthy, as your healthcare costs, and like eating this is going to maybe save you, you know, down the road, you know, so they're like, put your food costs into your healthcare bucket. And then, you know, that, you know, $1,200 divided by, you know, 2 families for healthy meat might actually be a good investment kind of a thing. So there's ways of looking at it for sure. But I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same concept though. Like you hear, what is his first name? Last name is, oh God. Anyways, he owns Ways to Well. I'm really drawing a blank on his name right now. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I mean, he's got the same concept as far as like taking care of your body with you know, alternative health measures or things like that. It's just like, you know, so, you know, he put it into perspective of like, look, you're going to have accidents. You're going to blow a tire on a car, right? You got to get that repaired. It's a no shit. But you got to change the oil. You got to put windshield wiper fluid in there. You got to put gas in it, right? You need all these things. So it's like, when you start to add those things, like you can run your car ragged, right? You absolutely, it happens, and you can usually tell, you know. But it's like if you take care of it, the longevity of that vehicle is exponentially greater. And so you put it into perspective, but it's the same concept of like, you know, his deal is like, okay, there's health, and you know, there's health care, and then there's healthy eating, right? So it's like if you just chalk away or adding, you know, better fuel into the system, into the vessel, it's like it's going to you know, it's going to propagate and continue to elongate, right? But the other thing too, and I've talked to a bunch of people about this, is that, you know, it's it's hard for people to put themselves into that perspective, right? So they're so in the moment, they're so paycheck to paycheck, and a lot of people maybe don't have access to healthcare, or the healthcare that they have is like crappy, or maybe their job is paying for it or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they don't look at it until a situation or an instant hits, right?
Yeah,
And that's the thing,
happens.
is like when you really just like start to microscope in on it.
Big time.
And it's like, holy shit, I didn't have adequate healthcare, or man, my policy was garbage, right? And so
Yeah.
those things are irrelevant because you've got a straight line to something else that's taking your focus in life. And so Tate Fletcher told me something the other day. He's just like, when you realize that you've gotten off track and you got to somehow get back on the train and keep moving, it's like you can make all these corrections, but what you think is that, you take 5 years off and maybe you're not training as hard, or maybe you're not running, or maybe you're not eating healthy, or doing whatever you got to do for mental health. And you're kind of on this like weird trajectory, right? But that train is like, when you decide to make the change and you want to get back on the train, he's like, well, people forget is that train's been moving. That train is not where it was 5 years ago. That train's gone. And so it's exponentially harder for you to get back on. You don't get back on where you left off. You get back on where the train is going. And so his thing was like the concept is like constant maintenance.
Yeah.
And I say that because it does have to be a way of life of just like, if you eat healthy, you will enjoy benefits of that, right?
Yep.
If you eat organic, I'm not saying I don't just buy it because there's a green label on it, because I think most of that at the grocery stores is fucking bullshit anyways. But
There's a lot of marketing.
it's like Simple Truth is a green label. It ain't organic, baby.
Right.
So there's a big difference.
Yeah,
but
there is.
if you eat better, you have a potential of again living a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's unfortunate that a lot of people, it's not in their purview, right? They're doing what they can to survive.
Yeah. Especially in their younger years.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like we're eating freaking Top Ramen, or we're at McDonald's because they got a $5 menu. I can get 5 burgers and fill the void. I mean, there's a lot that can go into that. I mean, that's a huge, that's a massive problem.
Yeah.
In the country, in the world, and it's I don't know. I don't know how you shift somebody's. I don't know how you take the masses and move their thought patterns, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's years, it's generations and generations of leading to where some people are mentally speaking, right? Yeah. And it's hard for me. Like I'll find myself sometimes being like just burnout, or I'll pop into a grocery store and it's like I go to reach for like a candy bar or get something and I eat it. The moment I eat it, I'm like, dude, well, I didn't eat that. It should have got like, okay, if I'm at a grocery store, get a thing of beef jerky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Jerky's the best.
And like recently, I've kind of started to get into this newer mindset, right? Because it's like, but I think about that. Like my parents aren't super healthy. They've never been health nuts. I remember growing up, like my dad was, my mom and dad got a divorce for a little while. And so we lived with my mom in Northeast Louisiana, and I joke about it. I still like them. I don't eat potatoes very much, but our biggest meal was like, I had to watch my younger brother. Our biggest meal was white bread with instant mashed potatoes. Like if it was lunch, because it was quick, it was easy.
Yep.
That was what was in the it wasn't even the refrigerator, right? It was just in the damn pantry. And so, I mean, like you think about it, like it's generational, right? If you teach your kids to eat healthy, they have a better chance of continuing to eat healthy. They realize it. Not always. Yeah. But so that's why I say is I don't know how you shift the mindset of the masses to being, that's like going back to what we're talking about. It's like you listen to some of these podcasts and you hear things. And I think it's one avenue of being like, hey, share this with somebody that you know that needs it, or share this with everybody. Cause it's like, like I like listening to the Rogan podcast with, damn it, I forget his name, right? It's going to kill me. Anyways, with the owner of Ways to Well, like that was a killer episode. I mean, they talked about so many things. Granted, they were like, really just going heavy on like the health care.
Not Gary Brecka, is it?
No, not Gary Brecka. It's his last name is, I think it's Ferris. His Instagram handle is like Ferris Bueller, like joking, but
funny.
So anyways, but long story short is like they were talking about all that like health and wellness and well-being and the things that we can and can't do within the country because of all kinds of regulations, and being like it's, we're getting to a point of like proven methodology that some of these things fucking help you. One of those things is eating healthy.
Yeah.
But it's hard to eat healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a decision to make.
And it can be expensive.
Yes, it can be very expensive. But
and
that's
time consuming too to prep it. Like,
yes.
You know?
Yeah,
that's another
absolutely.
thing. It's like I'm
But you don't. But getting back to what? No. Getting back to what Tate said to me, like you don't realize it until you're in the shit. You don't realize it until you're 30 pounds overweight, and you're like, I feel like fucking garbage. What's wrong? I got to go to the doctors. My testosterone level's low. I don't want to fuck anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's not the problem, man.
Yeah.
The problem is the fact that you eat like garbage.
Yeah.
You know, and like you need to, you have to shift your mindset.
Yeah.
And but I don't. Unfortunately, I don't think
if you weren't trained in the beginning, then there's nothing to go on.
Yeah.
Like,
and all of a sudden you got this huge, like, you know, recovery period to like get yourself back on some sort of track where it's like, yeah, when you're 15, 18, 25, like your body's, you know, you're burning calories,
That's
like
pretty
just
easy.
sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
But it's like shit changes real quick, you know?
I'm finding that out. Like I'm 43 now, and I never really did. Like my mom was real good about that. Like, well-balanced food, eating healthy, like all that kind of stuff growing up. And so I had that as a base to go off of, but there's still times like I'll go for the bowl of cereal way, you know, like that's easy. Okay, cool. Fix it, eat it. I'm hungry, or pop in some Eggos or something like that. But I keep hearing like processed foods is like the absolute worst thing that you can do. And so I'm paying attention to that now. Like I got some aches and pains after turning, like after 40, it kind of starts, and it's like, oh geez, I'm starting to pay attention to this stuff a little more than I used to. And I heard the other day, like gut health is mental health. And I was like, what do they mean by that? And like what you're eating affects like everything in your body, and you can change your body by what you're eating. And you know, you hear that stuff, but like I've actually seen it like happen. Like people change their diets and changes like their life entirely.
Sure.
So there's something to it. It's discipline for sure, and time. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, and that's the hard part. Is consistency. I think for a lot of people is to do that.
Yeah, just sticking to something. I think the best I've ever felt, honestly, was the carnivore diet, and I still eat like a very high protein diet. Like I almost never eat. I had a sandwich the other day because my wife, we were doing that again. We're down in Aztec working on this house, and she just packed a bunch of lunch. Yep. And I was like, what bread? It's like I almost never eat bread, you know? And so like, it was the first sandwich I'd had, and it was like, it's fucking good. And I'm into like, oh yeah, this is going to make me so sluggish. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I feel like when I am truly like doing nothing but carnivore, I mean, the synapses are fine. It's like rapid fire. My joints stop hurting. Like right now, I'm sitting here, I'm sore as shit because I've been doing all this labor. Yeah. And like I had a kind of a sort of sedentary job. Like I'm a real estate agent, and I was working out every single day, and I still am. And it's like, you know, I do the sauna, I do the cold plunge. Now I'm using muscles and like tendons and stuff, like hanging drywall today by myself. I don't use those muscles on a regular. So I'm like, I'm sitting here, my elbows killing me, my shoulders killing me because I was holding one today like this. And it's weird. It creeps up on you. Like you don't realize like, hey, my body is not as close to elastic as it was when I was 25.
And the elbow will probably take twice as long to feel better.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it's you know, I think all the little things, man. I'm a huge, you know, I kind of got off talking about it as much because I was just so into it, and I still do it every single day. Is sauna cold plunge no matter what. Yeah. Like if I'm busy, or I've had like a hellacious day or something and I don't get the biggest workout that I want to, sauna cold plunge every fucking day. I don't care what any studies say, like, oh, you should only do it 3 days. Like going back to the gut health is mental health thing, right? Yeah. So gut health is one thing. For me, and a friend of mine, Bo Ryan, he owns V23 up in Denver. Guy's jacked, workout. He put something up the other day and I text him. He's like, you know, everybody asks, so what's good with cold plunge? Like, oh, it produces brown fat, and all of a sudden it converts to brown fat, and you can burn that into calories. He's like, fuck all that, dude. It feels great. I get out of the cold plunge, and I feel better. I know it. Good. I can feel it in my body. You know, but he's saying this online. Like, stop with all the like, it's better because it's all that stuff's all out there. All the data's out there about cold plunge.
I've seen it.
But it's like when you sit in it and you get out, and all of a sudden you're like lit, you're alive. Something is happening, and it's positive. So it's like, who gives a shit whether your body's converting, you know, X amount of calories or carbs into freaking brown fat, and all of a sudden you got this energy moving. It just feels good, dude. Like,
is So yeah, my wife got me one for Christmas, like a portable one, and so I've been trying it, and I actually had it out on the front porch.
Yeah.
And so that cold spell, it actually like froze almost solid. So
Oh, yeah.
it was out of commission for a while, and I just actually the company was really cool because I ripped it.
Trying to get the ice out. Yeah.
And they sent me a whole nother one. So that was a shout out to the Ice Pod. They've been great. But so I don't know. I'm curious because the first couple times I did it, I got that for sure. But I think it was like attaboy, like I did something I didn't ever want to do, like getting cold water kind of a thing. And now like I'm doing it and I'm like, well, maybe it's because I'm not consistent. And like I hear and I read and I see, like all the benefits, but like I'm kind of like waiting for something to kick in because I feel like it went like this and then now I'm just like, and it's only been like, a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But consistently it hasn't been every day until like really this week when I got the other one. So was there a time when like it started to like, was it the consistency that makes it happen?
So there's a lot of people that will do like cold plunge before workout, or they do cold first and hot first. I personally work out, go into the sauna, go to cold plunge.
Okay.
I come straight out of the sauna. Sometimes it's 2 sessions. For me, everybody tells me it's bad. You're burning too many, like you're burning electrolytes at this point. But I do 45 minutes, and the reason I do that is because I do 45 in the sauna.
Okay.
At 35 minutes, it starts to be like pretty fucking hellacious. I mean, you're cooking in there. Especially like if you run out of water, you're like, oh, this is really good. It's a lot. It's a mental fuck, right? Yep. You got to get through it. And I go straight out of there, straight into the cold plunge. Like
beginning of the day?
Whenever, man.
Oh, okay.
If I've got a window. I usually like to block an hour out to do sauna, to cold plunge workout, but sometimes if I'm working, it's longer.
That's awesome.
So I'll jump straight into the sauna. Lately it's been great because I'm breaking ice, right? So it's plenty cold and kind of miserable because like I've got a trough in it.
Okay.
I got instead of getting the metal one, I got the plastic one. Yeah, I got the Rubbermaid, right? But it freezes to the sidewalls because it has like a little deviation.
Yep.
And so you're like sitting up against like just frozen ice, and it's
So yours is pretty chilly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, way chilly. Yeah. And so so I sit in there, set the timer for 3.5 minutes. That way I can stand in there and do it.
Yeah.
Every time I get out of the sauna, that first 20 seconds is horrible, right? And I've got a mantra that I say when I'm in there just to get myself away from the brutalness. But for me,
are you breathing for this too?
Yeah, I don't really focus on the breathing. I focus on, I used to say something else, like in my head, I had a specific like phrase.
Yeah.
Anymore, all I do is go 20, 40, 60, 81, 20, 40, 60, 81. Couldn't tell you how many times I count it in that phrase. I don't care. All I'm focusing on is that. And so then all of a sudden,
focused.
Yeah, I'm focused on it. And I know what breathing is controlling itself, but then all of a sudden you'll feel like the vascular, like your jugular vein, boom. And it's like everything starts to slow down. So here's the big deal for me. I get out of there, you feel pumped up, you're ready to go, you're freezing your ass off. But when I first started, I started in a pool, and it was kind of cool out. I'd sit for 6, 7, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It wasn't cold. I've gotten accustomed to the cold water to where it still sucks.
Yeah.
It's hellacious, but I can easily do 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes. I get lost in it. And all of a sudden I realized like my timer just went off like, oh, okay, I've been in here. Let's go.
Okay.
But I'm chasing something, and it happened to me. It was wild. It was still in the pool, but it was like right whenever winter really hit. And it was like a little bit of a cold snap. And it was like, okay. And I got into the pool. It hadn't frozen over. I got in there. The water itself was like 42 degrees, maybe 44. Okay. I got in there, and everything in the world went away. Like it was breezy outside, and then I like full on went into like some place of my brain. I had like an outer body conversation with myself. I was talking to like a higher power, and it was like, I had a podcast. I haven't aired it. It's preloaded. Talk about the whole thing because it was fucking crazy to me. And then I stepped out, and then I was just like, whoa, that was crazy. And then maybe a month, 2 months later, same thing happened, but it was once I got the Rubbermaid. And it was like the world just went away. And it was like there was nothing. Like it's gone. It's absolutely quiet. All the things you're thinking about that bother you, nothing like, and I don't mean like you're just not thinking about them because you're frozen.
Yep.
I mean, they're gone. Your thoughts stop. You're lost in something, right?
Wow.
And the only thing that I feel like it's personally akin to, and I don't know if you've ever done mushrooms, but for me, I really, really enjoy mushrooms, but I haven't done them in years, but I've had a couple of trips on hallucinogenic mushrooms where I felt the same thing, where I went into another space. Okay. I can't define it. I don't know what it is. So for me, every time I hop in the cold plunge, I'm chasing that because I know it's there. It's happened to me twice.
Yep.
I chase it every fucking day.
That's
because that feeling was heavily addictive, you know, because it's not a, and it's not, I don't meditate. Maybe it's a form of meditation. I can't explain it. I've tried to like look up and research what the hell that was. And it's only happened if I go hot to cold, extreme hot to extreme cold, you know, and maybe it's like the brain trying to conserve itself and your body's shutting down. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is like,
wow,
that's the best space I've ever been in my whole life. Nothing is there.
Yeah.
It's black. It's gone. Your eyes are closed. You've forgotten everything.
Wow. I've heard that, like, folks that do the ice baths or the cold plunging, the way that the brain reacts because of all the chemical, you know, stuff that's going on in the body, trying to like, okay, save itself. That after you get out, like, they compared it to like heroin. So like, okay, someone was doing heroin and it stays in their body and it lasts for like, the effect on the brain, I should say, was like 15 minutes or whatever like that. And they're like, the cold plunging was the same effect. Like if you're looking at a computer and it's showing like the brain, same effect, but like for 2 hours. And so they're saying that like, yeah, you have that kind of a mental, not addiction, but like gravitation to like wanting to do this every day because it makes you feel that euphoria that you would feel like on, and they specifically like talk about like amphetamines or something. So it's like, whoa, I haven't got there like I said the first few times, but maybe it's like I've heard that like 40 to 50 degrees, what did they say? Like 44 to like 50 degrees for like 3 to 6 minutes is shown to be just as effective as like colder for shorter or longer kind of a thing. And so like the well water comes out of our house at like 44 degrees. And so I can just like pop it in. And for me, that's pretty cold. Like those days when it was freezing, like you said, like I'd go out and pop the top and it was like I had to break ice to get in.
Sure.
And like a minute was like max. And so I got out and I was like, that was pretty cold. And I measured it. And I think maybe it was reflecting off some of the ice or air because it said like 29 degrees. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cold. Like, but is there there in certain parts of me where like, I literally cannot take this right now. So I had to get out kind of a thing. But is that something you just push through? Yeah.
I mean, it takes getting used to, I think, and it's,
well, they say ease into it too.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, if you can do a minute, do a minute. If you can do a half minute, I think, I enjoy pushing my body as hard as it will go. And some people will be like, well, you're not as athletic or whatever, or you're out of shape. And it's like, but it's like, I don't understand it. It's a weird twitch in my brain, but it's like, I know that I can get through that 45-minute session in the sauna. I know I can do 3 minutes.
Right.
So it's like, I enjoy pushing yourself to those boundaries. And it's like, you just have to kind of figure out what's the twitch for you? Like what allows you to do something that you hate for longer? Yeah. And it's not even doing it. It's what allows you to detach from the moment of pain. Like, can you detach your mind? And so that's like, I found for me, like I can't go sit in a sauna and focus on the sauna. I can't get in an ice bath and go, this is really cold. This is real cold. This is real cold. I wish it would stop being cold. Because then your brain is going to tell you to get out. You have to do something. If that's a cadence, if that's a rhythm. Some people focus on breathing. I can't focus on the breathing because all of a sudden then I'm focusing on the breathing and I'm going, oh God, it's not cold. Or no, I'm going, oh God, it's still cold, but I'm breathing like I should. Yeah. That's just the way my brain works. But, I started in 50-degree water for 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I would be freezing when I got out, like full on,
Yep, that's where I'm
goosebumps
at.
and
Yeah.
just, and the first time I got in like this winter, so the water was already getting cold and I was still doing, but the first time I had to break ice, it was brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was another like, okay, this is real cold. Like I've been sitting in, mid-30s water and it's okay, but it's not frozen just yet, or just maybe when it was like 6-8 inches of, and I'm out there, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, this is, again, but I just think it's like easing yourself into that.
Well,
And also
Yeah.
finding your pain and pleasure point, right?
Right.
Like through that pain, it's either going to convert into some way for pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's the pleasure is when you get out, you feel just on fire, like literally your skin is burning because it's so cold.
So cold.
And it's just you're just racing, right? Like if
Yeah,
that's
you
what
don't
you're
feel cold
chasing,
anymore. You actually feel
yeah,
hot.
yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
like if that's what you're chasing, that's the pleasure. You got to know when is the point to get to that. If a minute is that point, cool.
Right.
You're doing something that's putting your body at, out of its comfort zone, right?
Yeah,
And so,
big time.
what I found, I haven't sat in the ice pod one, but my friend of mine, he has, what is that? Ice Barrel.
Okay.
Is that company Ice Barrel, and
Yeah.
so it's a bigger barrel. It's kind of like got this like soft rubber on the inside. It almost feels like a membrane, so it doesn't like feel rigid.
Yeah.
I don't like sitting in that kind because
Okay, interesting.
I'm like sitting. I had to like sit like almost like a
Cross-legged?
as if like cross-legged, or like I was kneeling down onto the balls of my toe, and I'm sitting like this.
Yeah. Like crouching.
Yes, and I don't feel comfortable like that. It's a weird in an ice bath.
So you're
So
kinda
I
laid out.
lay back all the way up to my chin.
Yep.
The only thing I fucked up tonight is I cannot get my fingers wet.
Yeah.
The moment my hands get cold,
Yep.
it's lights out.
Yeah, it's game
And
over.
so tonight I was holding on to the deal, and when I got in, it splashed up and over, and I got through my time. But by the end, I was like going like this because I was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking about your hands are so cold, get out of the ice.
You feel it so much.
Yeah, but
don't-
I have to lay back. I just have to be like full on lounged and
Yeah.
just, I don't know,
They
embrace
say,
that
like,
misery.
Up over the shoulder, like shoulders need to be submerged. Like needs to be like neck level to like really get like the back, I guess. And
Oh yeah.
man, yeah, that's well, good on you, man, because it's tough. Like
It sucks. My wife won't do it. She can.
Yeah.
The other day she got in, like she went down to her hips and was like, nope, can't do it. I mean, it just the river is brutal. I'm like screaming.
Moving water.
Yeah, moving water's a bitch.
Yes.
Screaming to get to 3 minutes down there. Screaming. It's fucking cold, man. Because your body doesn't build that thermal layer, right? There's sometimes where I'm sitting there and I'm like, I bet I could go for like another 5 minutes. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't feel cold anymore.
Yeah.
You're just.
as soon as I start moving, or like you said, the hands.
Yeah, the hands. I can't do the hands. The feet don't bother me, but like at the moment my hands get cold, it lights out. I can't do it. So,
Oh, man, that's
yeah,
crazy.
but the sauna's a big deal too, man. The
I
sauna's
think
the other.
the combo
like,
of the two is
yeah, the sauna's good for me. I work a lot of shit out in the sauna, like whether it's a problem at work, whether it's a problem with family, whether it's me just kind of thinking about things.
It's almost
or,
like meditation
yeah,
time.
Yeah. I was listening to a lot of music, and then I started listening to a lot of podcasts, and then like lately I've kind of just like put that away and like hey, it's time to focus on what's up in the brain. Like it's time to let's start to digest and unpack some things that are happening or could happen, and let's work through that. And so it's been silence in there lately, which is a little different. And I go through iterations of it. There's some days where it's just like, man, I don't want to sit in the sauna, and I'll just go in there and like I'll play like whatever, like the hardest music I can play to just and just get through it.
Wow.
But for the most part, I've been trying to really like just work, like self-reflect, work on myself in there, because it's that space. It's like, just you got to distract yourself a little. It still sucks.
45 minutes is a long time too.
It is. Yeah. Most people tell me that that's not good. They use it to break it into like a 20 cold,
Yeah,
and
good
it's
20.
usually pretty good. But for me, man, I like 45. I mean, sometimes like if it's really not doing it for me, like, I mean, I pushed it the other day to 55 minutes, and then went and got in cold plunge, came back in with a towel over me, warmed up back in the sauna. I mean, it's just a day. It's like, I don't know. Like some days, you're just off a little bit. You're like, I didn't feel like I got enough out of that session. So I'm going to try and get back in there and get what I came in here to get.
Right.
And
Dang.
sometimes it's like, I think it's just putting yourself through that misery, right? Because if you put yourself through that misery, then you realize that the bullshit you're dealing with in life for that day that was like aggravating you, whatever, it's fucking garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
like
amazing.
you just put yourself through absolute fucking hell. I tried to go roll on the snow the other day.
Yeah.
I have no desire to do that. Like that was worse for me than the cold. I stood up out of the snow, which was kind of like crunchy snow. Well, maybe it was powder. And it was like hurting. I was like, this is awful. Got into the cold plunge. I was like, this is my safe space.
I can get that because like cold showers are way worse than the cold plunge for me.
Oh yeah. Can't do a cold shower.
And I don't know what it is, but I think maybe because I just know I can do that and it's over.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So a buddy of mine was telling me that, especially if you're working out, right? You go into, you work out, your muscles are trying to expand, right? But if you go into the sauna, they're going to get like a little bit looser. If you go into the cold plunge immediately after your workout or after the sauna, it stops the muscle growth, right? It immediately starts the rehabilitation process of the muscles.
Interesting. Okay.
And I asked him, and that makes perfect sense, right? So it's like you can work out all day and like get more defined, but you're not getting bigger, which is great. I don't want to be gigantic. Yeah. But the thing that helps me the most with is my joints, my elbows. I've got some bad knees. I ran a marathon, 40 pounds overweight last year, fucking destroyed. Were you at that race? No, the Baton Memorial?
No,
okay.
I will never do that.
I know, like
never, but
Ryan McLaughlin and Tyler and a bunch of those cats were down there. So I wasn't sure if you walked it with them. But yeah, I'd ran it the 2 or 3 years before. Much lighter frame, did fine, finished great. And I ran this last year, And destroyed my fucking knees, man. It was bad. So anyways, they hurt less when I do the cold plunge.
After the workout.
My joints physically, my tendons, they feel like there's a bit more mobility. Stretching like constantly, trying to just be as limber, stretching, the psoas muscle, hip flexor, that's a big one. Yes. Most of my stretching is in the sauna though. I try and stretch in there.
The heat in there, I think seems like that'd be good.
Yeah.
One thing I did notice now that I'm like reflecting is the nights. So I've been, because of my schedule, I've been doing the plunge at night after the gym. Mm-hmm. Not immediately after, but after. I sleep really well those nights. All this week I've slept really well. Yeah.
Dude, you just try going to bed immediately after the sauna. You do have a sauna at your house?
No.
Oh, you got to get a sauna, dude. They're so like they have
so cheap.
Shouldn't say cheap, but they're way less expensive than they used to be. But yeah, you can get like a 2-person infrared, get that puppy up to like 150 degrees, and you will cook like a chicken.
I heard,
Man, but sleeping after the sauna, God, dude.
Something to it, then.
Oh, fuck, like a baby. Like you just, because your body's like obviously trying to cool itself down.
Yeah.
If you can go in and take a little bit of a cooler shower, like still warm.
Right.
And then just kind of like let your body relax. Oh my God, dude. Like you're just like, it's so nice. It's some of the best sleep I've ever had.
I did hear like dropping your body temperature, like your head temperature, like dropping it. You don't really like fall asleep, or maybe it was you don't like get into a good sleep until like the temperature in your head drops like 2 degrees. Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's something to it, is like after the plunge, I take a shower because I have gym, plunge, shower kind of thing. So I don't know like if but I heard that like, okay, you're supposed to kind of like fight through it. So like I don't immediately go to the shower, like get out and try to let my body bring up that body temperature or combat what I was just going through, kind of a thing. And then, but yeah, it's the sleeping has been like lights out quicker, and then like deeper sleep. Like I have to get up to do like the dog or the bathroom kind of thing. But
for me, cold plunge is completely different. And I'm feeling it still right now. I finally just sort of kind of warmed up a little bit, but like for me, the cold plunge is like drinking 2 energy drinks. Like I feel great, and I could be tired, but my brain is a rapid fire.
Interesting.
But in a weird way, I sleep like dog shit anyways. Like I refuse to take melatonin. I don't do it, man, because there's this weird like melatonin hangover. I don't like it.
Never had
when
it.
I wake up, I want to just go.
Wow.
Like I want to just, I need my brain to be on go mode, and so it's like I'll just, my brain is.
Do you drink coffee?
Oh yeah,
You do?
for
Okay.
sure.
Interesting.
I try and do 1 cup of coffee, but lately I've been doing a shit ton of energy drinks and it's killing me, dude. I just, I know.
I hear they're bad for us.
Oh yeah, they're fucking horrible. But I just got so much, I just got so much on my plate right this very second, which is terrible, right? I'm sitting here being like, you got to be healthy, you got to be this. And so they're awful. But I mean, the cold plunge for me, it gets me going. If I just go sauna, like I can come out, slowly cool my body off. I can go straight to bed and just like, oh my God. But
Sleepy.
Energized it's really weird. I know it's bad for my sleep schedule, but I just love going sauna to cold.
Yeah.
And I usually do it at night. Most of the time my working out and stuff is at night.
Yeah.
Because I was oil and gas forever. So it was like, you're up at 5
Yeah, you
o'clock,
can't
you're up
do
at
it in the
4:30. And I fucking don't want to wake up that early. Like if I can not wake up that early ever again in my life, I would be so happy.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
My body, like we tried that, like going to the gym before work, and like my body wouldn't wake up until like, and maybe it's, consistency. I didn't do it long enough, but like halfway through the workout and like I started like feeling like I'm not fighting myself or getting like tight. I mean, it's finally loosening up and it's just like, so I think my body's used to doing it at night now and that's fine too. But yeah, the day just doesn't provide itself to, I'm not a morning dude, so
sure.
I'm not going to wake up at like 4 to go to the gym and hit it.
Dude, yeah. I'm not a jocko, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Tough.
no, I'm good, man. Too many days of that. Yeah. I was like, I don't ever want to get up that early anymore.
Yeah.
It's for the birds for me. It's like, I do love a good sunrise, but I don't have to catch it every morning.
Take a picture and go back to sleep. I like what you said about the, wake up and let your brain be able to like fire and stuff. Like I don't drink coffee.
Like ever or just in the mornings?
Ever. I mean, I'll have like a sip now and then, but caffeine, I can't really touch it. Maybe because I haven't, like when I do have it, it's just like lab rat.
Yeah.
It's tough. And so like, I don't like I'm not saying that like my body's pure or anything, but like I try not to like, aside from all the processed food I eat, I'm not like a healthy person. Like, I try to eat well, but like as far as like energy drinks or like that kind of stuff, I don't put into my body what like I feel like I should be able to mentally make it do by itself kind of a thing. And part of it was like reliance on something. Like I don't want to be, I could just see it like with my folks, like they wake up and then they get into like the real craft coffee and all that like fancy stuff. And it's just like, it's like 15 minutes for, a cup of coffee where like being able to jump up and ready to go kind of a thing. Like, and part of it's like, if I've ever been like a survival mode and I have to like live and, which hopefully never has to happen, but like, I don't know. I don't want to have to be reliant on anything. And so I try not to get hooked on anything. So
sure. Yeah. No, I definitely, I feel you there. I don't, other than caffeine, I don't take anything. I mean, every once in a while, ibuprofen if I got some aches or pains or something.
Yeah.
But like, it's really weird. It's like I will not take any type of narcotics. Like if I've got the last time I like wrecked my shoulder snowboarding, it was like 1,000 milligram ibuprofen. Ooh. And they were like, you don't want any Vicodin? I was like, fuck no. I was, you can keep that. That shit's for the birds. Like,
tough.
I will not take any of that stuff just from things in past life and to have zero desire, but not from me. Like I wasn't like addicted to it or anything like that, but it just there's such a stigma around it for me personally that I'm like, it's disgusting. I can't stand it. I think it's gross.
Yeah.
It also makes I've had it. The one time I took it was my wisdom teeth were pulled out.
Yep.
And it made me feel horrible like that. I don't understand how somebody's addicted to that. No. It's like that feels so gross. Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. It's like kind of I'm even weird when it comes to like vitamins, because there's certain I was taking Alpha Brain, like nootropics for a while. So they're night and daytime.
Yeah.
You start to feel really good, right?
Sure.
But then if you forget a day, you're like, oh shit, I forgot you feel like you forgot your Alpha Brain pack because you don't have this other stuff pumping. And maybe that's a product of like, hey, you should have these things in your body. You could think of it like that. Or like you're saying, it's like, well, maybe you could do certain things with eating right or sleeping right or doing something else to like.
In a perfect world.
Yeah.
For sure.
And also too, I do have an addictive personality. So if something like works, right? It's like, and I know it works and it makes you feel just slightly better. That's the other thing. That's the primary reason I will not take any type of sleep aid. Like I just won't. Like I know that sleep is so huge and or detrimental. Right. And like your daily life, your brain function, your body function.
Good though, yeah.
It's just like, but I will not allow myself because if it feels good, I'm afraid that I would want to take it every day to sleep because I don't sleep well. And I've talked to so many people who's like, well, you should do this, you should do this. Like, I'm not an insomniac and I sleep when I sleep. It's just like, I just don't, I don't remember the last time that I slept completely through a night sound. I don't remember it, and it's way worse now that I'm sober. Yeah. Like I sleep like garbage when I'm sober.
Interesting.
Yeah. Like I always slept like shit too if I was drunk. Like you have the drunk sleep where you don't feel rested.
Right.
But my brain just will not. It just won't shut off. It just keeps thinking. I'll sit there for hours in the bed just thinking, and poof, next thing I know, I wake up. It's 6 o'clock. Like, oh god,
wow.
When did I go to sleep?
It's almost like a little bit like torture.
Oh, it's fucking awful.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse. Like,
So again, right? Going back to the statement, I chase the cold plunge because the brain stops.
Yeah,
that's my reason. And I've done it twice.
Everything goes away.
And I think about it every time I get in there. I'm like, I beg for it. I pray that I'm going to get to that point. And it doesn't always happen.
Right.
It's only happened twice, right? In 7-8 months of doing cold plunge.
Wow.
But that's why I do it every day. Because that brain, the thing that just constantly just keeps me in motion and aggravates my wife at times. And,
it goes into survival mode.
It stops, man. It just,
and
it's fucking lights out. It's beautiful. It's so amazing.
That's awesome.
So I guess you got to find your reason for the cold plunge.
I guess I got to get a little colder too or something because, I was just.
You ought to try, you ought to try taking a really, really hot shower. Like
that's what I'm wondering.
Just like, get your body warmed up a little bit and then go get in this and get in the cold and see if it does. Cause that going from one end of the spectrum to the other, like it has I can't get into the cold plunge without getting into the sauna. That shit's miserable.
Okay.
Cannot, dude. It's
pretty tough.
Like, I mean, it's like I'm fighting for 3 minutes big time. So, I mean,
interesting.
I don't know why that is, why I do it that way, but maybe it's easier because my body's so warm that it kind of builds that thermal barrier faster. But
dang,
I don't know.
You touched on the carnivore. I've seen a lot of stuff posted about that. Like, did you get benefits from it?
Oh yeah, when I first got sober, I went
straight carnivore, or like were you doing like eggs and butter and that kind of thing? Or
so eggs, but that's on the carnivore diet.
Yeah, well, I guess there's like some
like hardcore, like only a steak,
just meat.
No, dude, those are fucking crazy people.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, like breakfast. Come on now, I need to have some breakfast.
No, I went. So I got sober, kind of my own volition, and then
good.
And
I mean, it was on your
got sober, had some pretty bad withdrawals with it. I've talked about it quite a few times on here. And then I needed something. Again, I'm going to push my body through hell, right? That's just kind of how my brain functions. So like I was feeling like garbage and I was like, okay, well, let's just add fuel to the fire. What can I do? And I was like, I was already eating like shit, right? Yeah. So I was like, boom. Then that day I switched to carnivore. And like it took about 3 days for my body to kind of adjust to it, like getting your bowel movements kind of in order. And it's just your body's not used to it. And then about a week into it, I felt amazing. I felt so light on my feet. I felt like I wasn't sluggish. I felt like it was like helping out my brain. I saw that I was feeling less hungry, but when I would eat, it was like I could eat whatever I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like, I would eat to like I think as humans, right? You know that we are. It's easy to overeat.
Easy.
But it's like I knew that I could eat X amount. The hard thing with carnivore is eating that much protein.
Yeah.
When you start to think, I think. So my buddy Kevin Worth was telling me it's like 6 when you're on a heavy protein diet. If you want to maintain your muscle mass, just maintain. It's like 6 grams of protein per pound of body weight.
Wow.
Right?
That's a lot.
And so it's hard. It's almost impossible to eat that. Like
Yeah.
when you really think about it.
Yeah.
I was eating 6
pound
to 8
for pound is almost hard.
6 to 8 eggs a day, probably a half block of sausage, some other type of meat, 2 avocado. The other thing too is I would have avocados. I had to have like a textural change.
Yep.
So I mean, you add that up, and I would still be like, "Holy shit! I'm freaking 100 grams of protein." You know. So then I started like adding in a protein only, like a strict organic protein into the mix. But again, that's only 23 grams. I'm like, I'm 75 shy. So it's hard to do. Like you always feel like you're light, like you don't have enough.
Yep.
But for me, it's the best I've ever felt. And, you know, close to another time, one time we went completely plant-based, and I felt really good with that. But again, it's like you rid your body. I think the biggest thing, like I'm not gluten intolerant. I don't have any issues. I just don't like it. I've never liked pasta. I really don't like bread unless it's sourdough. And the thing of it is like it makes me just feel lethargic.
Yeah.
Like I ate that sandwich, and I was literally working down there swinging a hammer, and I was like, oh God, okay, this is so thick, like just this mass in your belly.
Yeah.
And now your body's focusing on breaking that down. But with the carnivore diet, it's so great. And I'm not like 100% on it right now. I would say I'm 80% protein, but like I am eating other things. Like I mix back in like a tiny amount of granola, a little bit of yogurt, you know, some things like that, just to kind of like some fruits. I'm like, I need a fucking apple. I just want an apple, you know? But yeah, to answer your question, like it's the best diet I've ever been on. And people think it's gross or it's very cliche or like this fad. I'm like, man, and people think you're crazy. Like, oh my God, your cholesterol has got to be through the roof. I'm like, I did a blood panel and it was like primo vera, dude. Yeah. Like it was all good. Yeah. Everything was great. The doctors were wild. They were like, "Oh, you lost 40 pounds," and you're like, "Yeah, you're looking awesome."
Yeah.
The one thing that I wasn't sure, and so Dr. Kevin Livingston was on the podcast, and I want to have him back on because we were talking about testosterone levels, right? And so I said it earlier, where you're overweight and you're not eating healthy, and all of a sudden you're like, I need to go get my testosterone levels checked, and they must be low, but they're normal. And so the thing that he was telling me is that the way that, like, when you have fat on your body, the way that the fat consumes the testosterone, right? Like it can actually, like, I don't want to really, because I didn't get enough information about it, and I want him to explain it better. But the way that he was talking is like, it's basically like it can consume the amount of testosterone, right? So like if you have, let's just call it, you have 100% testosterone in your body, and but you're overweight. You can go in and get all your levels checked. They're checking for the testosterone, but the way that your body can utilize it is weaker. It utilizes it in a weaker way because you've got all this other fat that it has to like break down before it can actually get into your body. So the thing I thought with carnivore and losing weight is like, oh, you're going to get, you know, this increase of testosterone.
Right.
Not necessarily. You know, and my T levels are fine. But that's the big thing is like, I was kind of all the things you read, like, oh, you could have a spike in testosterone and I guess in a sense, because like you're like moving more, you feel like you're more alive kind of vibe, but it wasn't like in a sexual drive type thing. It wasn't this, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm fucking 20 again. Let's go take on the world. It just was like, all right, I feel good. I feel good again. It's been a long time since I feel good. But for me, I think it's the diet. I'll probably get back onto it, like, because and I did say multiple times on the podcast, is like, I don't want it to be like forever, but I think it's a great thing. Like, I need to check my body just for a second. Boom. Yeah. Let's do this. And it's all my favorite foods, man.
Yeah, I mean,
like I can do it.
I can eat steak for sure.
Yeah, I don't need potatoes. Like if you give me some eggs, some bacon, some sausage, a steak, I'm good. Yeah. I am good.
I mean, it's all great food. The reason I ask is like, we had a guy that works out of the gym with us, and he had a heart attack in the gym, and He showed up back at the gym. It was a few months later. It wasn't that long. And I was like, hey, how you doing? And like, what's the doc got you on? And he's like, well, I'm eating this and this. And I was like, oh, you like just a well-balanced diet kind of thing? He's like, no, just all meat. I was like, really?
Mm.
It was kind of the first time that I'd heard about it, but it was the first person that I'd like personally walked into and talked with. That's like, yeah, my cardiologist, I just had a heart attack. My cardiologist was just telling me that I should just be eating meat. And I was just like, wow, that's so not what I've been informed with my whole life.
Yeah,
it's like, yo,
because it looks like this, right? Here's
Yeah.
that fucking food pyramid.
Yeah.
That's what we've been told since we were kids.
yeah,
It's garbage.
it's crazy.
Most of that on there is garbage, and everybody's like, "Well, oh, you're not getting this, or you're not getting this." But the I would implore anybody to get on the carnivore diet if you're skeptical.
Yeah,
Go take a blood panel and then
Yeah.
go get on the carnivore diet, and then when you're 3-4 months into it, right, or
Yeah.
a month, whatever,
Even a
go
month,
back,
yeah.
get another blood panel. And all your preconceived notions that you have about it, it's going to boost your cholesterol. You're eating 8 eggs a day. Oh my God, you're freaking going to die. What are
Yeah.
you doing? No, I'm
crazy.
telling you,
Yeah.
it's fucking lies. We've been fed lies.
I think that food pyramid was like dollars. You know? People like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm just making that up. But
Food
like,
pyramid was to keep people alive, in all
Yeah,
honesty. Like
yeah.
we went from people dying because of starvation to
Yeah.
how do we create this? Okay, now we can get people to live. Oh, we've created this monster. How can we all of a sudden get people to live
Mm-hmm.
long enough to where we can get them hooked on something or hooked on medicines?
yeah,
right?
that's funny.
I'm telling you,
Yeah.
though, everybody
Totally.
will say the carnivore is horrible for you. It's the worst thing. It's proven your body's going to produce
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. Do a blood panel, get on the diet, go do another blood panel.
Yeah.
I promise you, I did it,
That's crazy.
and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like right now, I've kind of switched off. I feel worse now because I've kind of brought in some other things back into my
Yeah.
diet. So that's why I say I'm gonna switch back. Well, those don't fucking help. Yeah. So what is this? This is Zion's Frostberry. Yeah, but
yeah.
it's the only problem I will say with it is that it's hard to eat as much protein as you need to maintain. It's very difficult.
They want you to do like a 6-to-1 ratio, huh? Like I've never looked at.
I'll have to ask Kevin again. I wanted to say that it was 6
that's a lot.
grams. It was like 6 grams per pound of, so I'm 200 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot,
Wow.
dude. It's a lot. I mean, and you're like, oh, I had 2 burger patties. Cool. Congratulations, man. You know what you got out of that?
Yeah.
You got 40 grams of protein.
Yeah,
And so it's like, oh shit. All right, now I got to eat, So you're kind of never hungry because you are eating to stay not only full, but it's weird. You feel lighter because your body's not you consume it and your body just immediately gets what it needs from it and then processes the waste.
right.
And so it's a very efficient manner of living. I didn't have any negative repercussions like with like no weird like kidney pains, no issues with like a crazy restructure like with bowel movements or anything like that.
I've
There was
heard that
nothing.
too, yeah.
I mean, like I read everything and it's going to affect different people's bodies. But the reality, the way that I look at with the research I did, is like if you switch to carnivore and you came from I don't know a primarily carb driven. Shitty processed foods.
Yeah.
When you start to switch, your body is getting rid of the junk, and all of a sudden you're burning all this fat, and so it's going to affect your bowel movements negatively.
Right.
Some people are like, "Oh, this is not good for me. My
Haven't gone
my
for,
stomach's
like, 2
upset."
days or
Like,
something.
dude, look what you were eating for 6 months or 6 years prior to this.
Yeah, that's a good point,
so
too.
it's, but I didn't. I really, honestly, didn't experience any negatives with it. That's why I say it was
Yeah.
an easy shift for me to get into. And the only thing I would say is that you'd probably do need to at least plan on taking some type of very, very organic, true protein powder, which is going to taste like garbage, right? But they've got some out there that are pretty pure, where it's just protein, no flavor, no nothing, and that twice a day, you're probably getting another 40 grams of protein, so it's a lot, but
Yeah.
it's
It's a
pretty easy
lot.
to maintain. A lot of beef jerky.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard to eat beef jerky. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. So,
Man.
but that kind of keeps you afloat, keeps you going. So
It's like a lot of the people that I see that have done it, if they've done it because of X, Y, and Z. Like they've got this wrong and they're trying to do this. And like, I don't feel like, I'm not the healthiest, but like, I don't feel like anything really is wrong. So like, I'm like wondering, well, is it even worth it for me to try it? Like what would be the ROI on it, I guess is my thing. Like versus like, I'm hungry. I'm just going to go eat like whatever, like have a burger tonight kind of a thing. And
yeah, totally a valid argument. So the big push for me is like, I mean, you've heard Rogan talk about it a billion times. You've heard Huberman talk about it. Everybody's talking about it, right? So I never want to just jump onto some bandwagon and be like, oh, this is great. So I was really researching it and had been for a while. I found this great article that it went through and detailed all of the positives and all of the negatives. It was just like, here's the baseline of it. And it was real open, real honest. Didn't quote a single Rogan article, didn't quote Huberman. And I was like, cool, this seems a little bit unbiased, right? And for me, after reading that article, I'll see if I can't find it, I can send it to you. But it was like the pros of it outweighed the cons. And I was like, okay, but I hadn't started it. I was like, okay, if I do something drastic, I think I'll do this. I'm going to try it. Yeah. And then, like I said, I got sober and then I needed something else. I needed to okay, boom, we're going to do this and then we're going to start working out again. And for me, that was like that. This is hardcore enough to where, I need something to focus on that's hard enough to where I don't focus on drinking. Wow. Right? I needed something else to kind of be addicted to. It was a diet and it was working out, right? So it made sense for me at that time. Since then, I can just say that it had profound impacts on me. You know, and people awesome. Would say, well, you just weren't eating enough to sustain. Okay. I was eating, let's call it 175 grams of protein per day and still probably close to that. Still actively drinking a gallon and a half of water per day, taking vitamins, working out every single day, doing the sauna, doing the cold plunge, lost 45 pounds. So it's like most people would argue that and say, well, you weren't eating enough. I'm like, fuck you. Show me where you're, my calorie intake was through the roof. Yeah, I'm sure that was, right? Yeah. My body is just naturally burning calories on that diet. And sure, I was probably in a little bit of a caloric deficit, but not enough to lose that kind of, and so I think it was, I wouldn't think so. That, obviously the drinking, obviously the working out and just kind of like flipping it a little bit of like getting on a positive diet, getting my frame physically back to where it's meant to be. And I'm still overweight, but being, down in Aztec working in this house, I haven't been working out as much as I should be. Yeah. Like I've kind of gotten off the regimen of a little bit more than I want to. But I think it's worth trying. Yeah. I'm really tempted to. And not because it's going to like make you look better, but I would be willing to bet that it will make you feel better. Yeah. And I don't know why that is or what it does. The other thing too is that a lot of people are like, oh, it's so hard to prep for. Here's the deal. I've got 2 kids that don't want to eat what I eat ever. Doesn't matter what I cook. Most of the time they're like, I don't like that. I don't want that. If you have children, you probably know my wife also does not want to be on that strict of a diet. She doesn't like meat that much. It's not her thing. Yeah. I dealt with it, man. Like it's super quick and easy to make a meal for your kids and your wife that they enjoy and for you to go cook 3 or 4 eggs. Would you like meal prep for the week on it? No. See, I don't like that. I don't like prepping. I'm not a big gym rat where it's like, I'm going to have a chicken breast. I'm going to have no. Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like, I am the worst person to try and prove the carnivore diet. I will not prep. I very rarely pack a lunch. Like I just, it's just like eat when you eat, get some beef jerky, eat in the mornings, eat in the evenings, it's not a hard diet. You don't have to prep all this kind of crazy shit. And you just. Have you counted macros before? Like, I'm just like wondering if it's comparable for because counting macros takes a lot of effort. And I'm just wondering if carnivore is just like, yep, eat this. I don't know. I'm not that guy. I'm not I would, no, I've tried it and it's pull my hair out. Yeah. It's tough. It's a lot of work. Yeah. What's that bodybuilder guy? He's super up and coming, Sam something, but I forget his last name. But he's counting macros the other day. Ooh, all right, cool. 3 grams of carbs with this meal. That sounds great. I'm like, no, wait. It's bro, that sounds miserable. It's tough. And that was the other thing that I enjoyed about carnivore. It's eat as much as you want. As long as it's of this. Yeah. Eat as much as you want.
So it's freedom, but it's just not freedom of everything. But
Yeah.
I do like that, like being able to pop, like, okay, eat some jerky or eat a steak and not feel guilty, and steak with some butter. Like
The good
awesome.
thing about like that diet too with me is I'm not a big sweets guy. Like every once in a while I'll be like, oh,
Okay.
something sweet sounds so good. I'm a salty guy.
Okay.
You know, and so
Yep.
meat with salt flavor, beef jerky with salt and pepper, it worked perfect with me. Eggs with salt, it worked well with what I enjoy as far as my palate. But some people, if they have like a real big like sweet craving,
Yeah. That's
I don't know,
me.
maybe like some teriyaki sauce. I don't know, some
Yeah.
kind of sauce. You know,
I'm not like candy and candy bars, but like donuts and pie, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. My jam.
that could be rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I go into it with like an open, like zero expectations and just kind of like, okay, well, what happens, happens. And if I see a big benefit, then obviously it was worth it. But just like, yeah, since we do have the beef in the freezer, it makes it a lot more easy for me to, try to do that. But like, man, some of those meat prices, like, whew.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the craft butchers stuff that I've been seeing. That's like, what was it? What did I see the other day? It was like $48 a pound for some ribeye. It's like, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. A lot of eggs. Eggs are cheap still, I guess.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that's what I did, man. I would say try it. The only other thing I would put a little bit of caution behind is like if you're weightlifting and you're trying to build muscle, almost impossible
To build.
right? You just have, but you have to eat enough protein to maintain what you got. So if you work out, which it sounds like you do, you know, if you want to keep it, I would just say you got to make sure you got enough protein coming in. You know.
Otherwise, it'll break down that. Yeah, it'll use that muscle for food instead of the fat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And you can like, I was telling Kevin when he came on, because I was like 3 months into it, like hot to try, like, dude, I love it. I feel great. And I was like, but dude, I just feel I don't get that pump in the gym. Like when I'm at the house, like I'm like, it's just not there. It's like I can get through the workout with no pain or nothing like that, but I just don't have that like,
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, yeah, I mean, this is your diet, man. Like, absolutely. He's like, you want to be able to pump? He's like, just go carb load. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'd rather feel good for the rest of the day versus when I'm in the gym. But so.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck with the Bison thing, brother.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks.
Have you ever felt
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.